Hello, folks. We're going to get started about right on time. So if you are not city council or mayor's office staff, if you could please make sure that you're muted and your video is off until the public comment portion of the meeting, we greatly appreciate it. All right. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. It is 7 p.m. and I would like to call this June 8th, 2020 meeting of the Lansing City Council to order. Before I do that, we're recording, and sorry about that. I need to get somebody who wants to record the meetings too. So. Sorry, folks. I just want to get the meeting all set in order here. So tonight is the 8th of June. I ask for a roll call, please.
Councilmember Betts.
Here.
Councilmember Dunbar.
Here.
Councilmember Garza.
Here.
Councilmember Hussein.
Here.
Councilmember Jackson.
Present.
Councilmember Spatafor.
Present.
Councilmember Spitzley.
Here.
Councilmember Wood.
Here.
There are 8 members present quorum, no members are absent, and we are to the meditation and pledge of allegiance.
Sure. So this evening's meditation and pledge, I'll ask council members, the mayor, and the clerk for those that they wish we keep in our thoughts during our moment of meditation. But I would also just ask that you all please keep Jack and Sue Davis and their family in their thoughts. Mr. Davis passed away in between our last council meetings. He was someone we all came to know. And if you know my Jack Davis story, I always tell you Jack Davis is the reason I ran for the school board. So he will be missed by this community, and his family is certainly in our thoughts as we reflect on that. So are there others who wish us, Councilmember Betts?
Thank you. I would like to keep in our thoughts and our prayers tonight George Floyd and his family. This is a hard time for the entire Black community, and I think that we need to recognize and lift them up and pay attention to how they're feeling at this time. And this moment of silence is very important. Today, there was a moment of silence for a certain amount of time. It was 8 minutes or something like that. However, I realized that we're short on time and we shouldn't do an entire 8 minutes. But I think that we should have them in our minds today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Betts. Very much appreciated. Councilmember Spitzley.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I know you are, but I would ask the council members to just keep praying for our city. We have a great city, and I continue to be proud to represent the city of Lansing, and we have a lot of healing to do. And so pray for meaningful change. Pray for the city leaders to be able to look past any bias that we have, because we all do, to affect meaningful change. So I just ask for prayers for our city.
Thank you. Councilmember Hussein.
I would echo the sentiments of both Councilman Betts as well as Councilwoman Spitzley. And I think we should once again, in our prayers and during our meditation, remember also the families of Mr. Ahmad Aubrey, as well as Breonna Taylor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to echo everybody else's sentiments, but also pray for the protesters nationwide and internationally and let them stay safe as they go out to make sure their voice is heard and make sure that this important issue is addressed. So I'll pray that they keep the pressure on and stay safe out there, and also pray that nobody gets hurt. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Jackson. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, President Spatafor. I also would echo those sentiments that have been shared regarding what's going on in our nation and city right now.
No, went down to the icon at the bottom.
But I also would like us to keep in our thoughts one of our local community members, Kelly Rossman McKinney, has been diagnosed with cancer, and it is not a hopeful prognosis. So I hope we can keep her in our thoughts as well.
All right, thank you all. We will pause for a moment of meditation. Thank you, and please join me in the recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, before we move on, it appears that we have hit a 100-person limit, and that was not supposed to be the case. So I'm going to ask the council to go into just a brief recess while we try to address that and allow as many people in as possible. So we're going to go on recess. If you all want to just please mute, pause, stop your video, those types of things. We will come back shortly either with a resolution or something else. Council, I was able to move the large meeting license over to Clerk Swope. We thought we were being clever and having him issue the meeting notices, so if Kyle ran late, he could start the meetings, but we forgot that I was the keeper of the 500-person license. So we will we'll take care of it. Just give me a few minutes to get reorganized, and then we'll start right back up in about 60 seconds. All right, council members, if you could put your mics back or put your videos back on. And if you're not on city council or with the mayor's office or city staff, we ask that you please keep your microphones muted and your video off until public comment time. We appreciate your cooperation in that. Everyone will be given an opportunity to speak this evening if they wish to do so. Mr. Clerk, we are on to the reading and approval of printed council proceedings, and I call on Council Member Vice President Hussein for this portion of the meeting.
Sure, I would move the approval of the printed council proceedings, May 4th, the 11th, and the 18th as written.
Thank you. It has been moved.
We don't have We don't have the 18th though.
Nope, just the 4th and the 11th.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're correct. The 4th and the 11th. Thank you.
Very good. We have the proceedings before us. I don't see any discussion on these items, so would the clerk please call the roll?
On adoption of the two sets of minutes, Councilmember Betts,
Yes.
Councilmember Dunbar,
Yes.
Councilmember Garza,
Yes.
Councilmember Hussein,
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson,
Yes.
Councilmember Spatafor,
Yes.
Councilmember Spitzley,
Yes.
Councilmember Wood.
Yes.
8 yeas, 0 nays. The minutes are adopted, and that takes us to special ceremonies and presentations.
Yes, and first this evening we have the Ingham County Health Department. With us, we have Linda Vale and Debbie Edakpolo, who will be presenting on the region's COVID-19 response. And before they begin, although if you all want to get your cameras on and get your mics unmuted, I do want to thank you for being with us this evening. I know you were supposed to be with us a couple of weeks ago, and our committee of the whole meeting ran late and you had other appointments. So thanks for making time again, and the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Is Linda with us yet? Hold on, let me look for her.
I am. I'm working on it.
Oh, there you are. Very good.
Yeah, sorry.
All right.
Can I get the ability to share screen?
Yes. Let me see if I can give that to you. I'm just gonna. Sorry, just a second. Looks like you can. Is it?
Okay.
Yep.
There we go. I want to just start by going over just rather quickly our data in Ingham County, and I think in particular, everybody's been interested in things that are going on with the city, and as you know, we've been seeing just a high rate of cases in particularly our 48911 zip code. So I just wanted to go through this for you. Unfortunately, I didn't get my new update until about 5 minutes ago. So I'm going to go with the data I had on the 5th, although this first slide here is as of today. So we have 770 cases. We've reported 27 deaths. I believe it's been at least a week since we've had a death. We have 3 in the hospital, 1 in ICU, 435 recovered. Of our current cases, 305 are also outpatient, which means they're home with relatively mild cases recovering. That is a case fatality rate based on percent known or confirmed cases. And of course, we don't have a full case count in terms of confirmation at this point, but 3.5%. Our staff does active monitoring as well, which means people who are known to be exposed or in the beginning had a travel history or something like that, that we need to quarantine for a 14-day period to make sure that they are not infectious or do not have the illness until the full incubation period or has expired. So we've done that now with going on 1,000 cases. So that is contact tracing and active monitoring. Quite a lot of work by our staff. So I'm going to pass by this graph because it's not very remarkable to look at just less than 1% in the hospital. Trend-wise, in terms of Ingham County residents in the hospital, we have been, at a relatively flat since early May now, which, the whole flattening the curve thing was about getting us to a point where we weren't, as we're seeing here, overwhelming our healthcare systems in terms of capacity, so that folks who did become seriously ill and needed ICU or additional things were able to have that. So just a kind of pie chart to show you, we have 56.5% of our cases recovered, 3.6% deceased, 39.5% are at home. And this is what our cumulative case count looks like. So we were looking for this to flatten. And for somebody like me, this looks like it's flattening well. It's a rather lengthy graph, so it's a little harder to tell when you get out this far. This is what we call our incident curve. So this shows us the number of new cases reported per day. They are reported on the date of onset or symptoms. If we don't know the date of onset of symptoms, because as you know, we have asymptomatic cases, it will be the date of referral. In other words, the date they came into our system as testing positive. One of the other metrics you need to look at as you basically increase capacity to test and then also have increased test cases is that can be an artifact of increased testing. We have increased cases because we are doing more testing. And I will tell you that Ingham County is one of the leading counties in the state in terms of the number of tests that have been conducted here. I don't have the current numbers. It was about 9,000 or 10,000 last time I checked. Sparrow has done a phenomenal job of building up testing capacity in the county. As a matter of fact, they rank about 4th or 5th in the state in terms of the total number of tests done by any laboratory in any place. So remarkable partners with Sparrow Health System in getting a huge amount of testing capacity going. MSU Health Test Team also doing testing, our Forest Community Health Center, a couple of urgent care locations and places like that. What we have to do when we're looking at these things is now look at two things to see this trend downwards. You've heard the governor talk about gating criteria. So first of all, you put this into what's called a 7-day rolling average, which flattens out your curve for you. So this daily incidence curve looks like this when you put it into a rolling average, and you see a downward trend starting about the end of April. The blue line that is in here is basically the downward trend in percent positives per day reported. So, you know, like you see in here, testing was, percent positives were going down, but cases were going up. And that's what I'm talking about with the increased testing sometimes is the result of increased cases. It's a detection thing. So we always have to be mindful of the fact that we're doing a lot of testing, which is part of it. If we look by zip code, importantly, 48911, 30% of our Ingham County cases are in 48911, followed by 48910. So that's some, I believe, 228 cases out of our current 770. So this is just a map that kind of shows you the same thing. We look at cases by zip code. So this is just cases. The darker shading is the higher number of cases in zip codes. So you can see what's going on here in the city relative to other, you know, the other places in the county. And then what we do is we calculate what's called a rate. So what that does is kind of normalize across different populations. So if you have 40,000 people that live in 48911, which I happen to know is the case, and then only a few thousand people that live in another zip code, and we want to compare those zip codes, we have to calculate what's called a rate. And so everything gets brought up to 100,000, and how many cases would you have or do you have per 100,000? So if you have less than 100,000, for instance, 48911, you've got 40,000 people, you know, so you're like 2.5, whatever times under 1,000. So all your cases you now multiply by 2.5 to calculate a rate. Other places might have less or more than 100,000, and that gets brought down to 100,000, and those get divided. So rate is very important to look at when we look at public health measures like this. This is a countywide heat map of basically where cases are, and your city council people, so I'm sure you know your districts, but this is the 48911 zip code right here, followed by 48910 in here. This over here is basically Ingham County Medical Facility, excuse me, went too fast, the number of cases that we've had in that long-term care facility out in Okemos. So that's why that looks like a hot spot in there. Zoom into the city, kind of looks like this. Again, you know, no surprise with 30% of our cases in 48911 that we see multiple hot spots within that zip code. We are basically 51% of our cases are female, and 49% male. By age group, we've been trending in this area where from the 20 to 29 up to the 50 to 59 age group, we're roughly at 16% of our cases. And then we taper off in our older and younger age groups. Those are two things. We have less people. Again, you should calculate a rate, which we haven't done here in those age groups on the other side. But we do see more of an impact in these age groups, and yet more death in the higher age groups. Looking at that, and I apologize for this, I did this graph on my own real quickly so that I could give you current data, so the labels are not as bold as I'd like them to be. But if we look at that in 48911, we do see a skewing towards a little bit of a younger age group there. So you see that 20.2% at 30 to 39, and then 14 almost 15 and 16% in the 20 to 29 and 40 to 49 on either side of that. When we look at our cases by race, 48% of our cases are Caucasian, 28% Black or African American, 15% Asian, 5% other, and then 4% unknown, just missing data. So again, important to calculate that by rate. Oh, let's do this first. In 48911, 37.7% of our cases are Asian, 32.5% are Black or African American, 21.1% Caucasian, 4.4% other, and 4.4% unknown. Now we go back to that prevalence rate where we know, 12% of our population is African American, roughly 5 to 6% Asian. So now we can't compare just raw numbers or percents. We have to say we have 200 and some thousand Caucasians in this county. And so what is the rate? That's 168 cases per 100,000 Caucasians in our county versus 639 and 624 and 607 in our other populations, our African American, Black population, our Asian, and then other would incorporate American Indian or Native American, American Eskimo, some of those other categories of race that just get in the other. If we look at that prevalence rate in our 48911 zip code, we are at 215 Caucasian, 667 for Black, and 3,905 for our Asian population in 48911. So now if we look by ethnicity, Hispanic or Latino versus non-Hispanic or Latino, we're 84.6% not Hispanic or Latino and 11.1% Hispanic or Latino. Again, calculating that by rate, which hopefully I've explained well enough for all of you, 238.1 not Hispanic or Latino, 364.2 Hispanic or Latino. So a slight, difference in prevalence rate there, but obviously striking differences in prevalence rates in our Black population as well as our Asian population and our other, particularly in 48911. Deaths in the county, basically 14.8%, 50 to 59 years old, 25.9%, 18.5%, 60 to 69 years old, 25.9%, 70 to 79, and 40.7% of our deaths over the age of 80, which is basically what we're seeing nationally and worldwide, is that deaths in the 70 to 79 and then over 80 age groups are the predominant. So we look at those by sex, and we are 48.1% female, 51.9% male. If we look at that by race, we are 63% Caucasian, 29.6% African American, and 7.4% other. By ethnicity, again, looking just at percent, we're 85.2% of the deaths are not Hispanic or Latino, 7.4% Hispanic or Latino, and 7.4% unknown. So just to give you kind of just a sense of what's going on. Now, we've been doing obviously lots of testing with partners, incredible partnerships in this county. We have a region and a county that has really done some heavy lifting with regard to being able to test and being able to contact trace. And I think that has been a large part of why, there's a lot of ways that this doesn't feel successful at all. And I hear that, and I see that, and I know that. And in other ways, we've kept our death count down compared to other counties our size. I used to be the health officer in Kalamazoo County, and I watched us be ahead of them, and I watched them catch up and go past us, not only in cases, but in deaths. I think the last time I checked Kalamazoo County, which you don't care about, but just in perspective, because it's a similar size county, I think they were over 60 deaths in Kalamazoo County compared to our 27 here. Working with the chamber in terms of reopening, also working with Debbie, who's been leading our special populations team, to make sure that we specifically target and address what we know is going on, which is the disproportionate impact on our communities, our Black community as well. Here in Ingham County, our Asian community, which is not this, you're not seeing that. really in other counties, nor in basically across the nation. That's relatively unique. It would be interesting to see, other cities like ours that has been a welcoming city to people from all over the world, a history of doing that for so many years, and whether or not they are seeing a similar thing with, the people that we have welcomed into our community to live here and to support them here as they've left, wherever their homelands have been for whatever reasons those are. So that is different. It's a little bit different here in Ingham County. And so that has been a lot of work there. And I'm going to turn over to Debbie right now and let her talk to you a little bit about what's the work that's been going on with that team. As we knew, quite honestly, we knew that it was very likely that this would happen when we know that our population, our Black population, has disproportionate health impact across the board in just about every metric or health measure that we see. It certainly wasn't a surprise for us to see that this also disproportionately impacted that community and the other communities we're talking about. So we got geared up and ready for that early on, and Debbie has been leading that, and I'm going to turn you over to Debbie.
Thank you. Hello, good evening. So as we started this project, as Linda said, really looking at how we could really support our Black and Brown communities. And really we had, our objectives were to decrease the rate of infection, to decrease the rate of infection, hospitalization, and the mortality rate of Black and Brown and Indigenous folks in all of our communities of color. And so our approach really started out is how do we get some information out there quickly? And so we looked to other leaders of color in our communities to share information with them, to put out information about COVID-19, what it looked like, what the symptoms were, where people could call, if they had a place and they needed to isolate or to quarantine, how they could get some of those services. We provided referrals for needed items and those kinds of things. And then over the last month or so, we really began to provide testing so that folks can know what they were they positive or were they negative? And we really, as well as I think one of the things we wanted to do, early on, there were places that people could get tested, but you need to have a referral from a doctor's, and there were things that they needed. And so really our goal was to break down some of those barriers, take testing into the community, and allow folks to, where they live, where they shop, be able to get some of that testing. And so we have done testing over in South Lansing. And most of our testing has been in the 48911. As Linda has talked about, it has a high rate of Black and Brown people who have tested positive. And so we have done a lot of testing in that area. I would say over the last 4 weeks or so, we have tested about 343 people in that 48911 area. And we are continuing to do that. We're having a testing event on Wednesday. And so that's what we've been doing. And we will continue to do that. We continue to look at where the needs are in the community and to try to figure out how do we partner with others to help to provide some of those needs, providing support and resources, and those types of things are some of what we have been doing.
Thank you, Debbie and Linda. Really appreciate you sharing that with us and for being here again. Council members, are there questions for Linda or Debbie? I see that Councilmember Wood has her hand up, so we'll start with Councilmember Wood.
Thank you, President Spatafor. My question to you is looking at some of the senior facilities that we've heard across the nation and some of the problems that they've had. How have we interacted with the senior facilities that we have in Ingham County as far as education and testing and recommendations that you've made with them?
Sorry, I was on mute. So, well, once again, I will say that this community has done a really phenomenal job of keeping those long-term care facility outbreaks and some of our senior living places, those outbreaks from becoming as large as I've seen them in a lot of other places. Still relatively devastating, of course. Early on, as we were working with long-term care facilities, and of course concerned about them, because we knew after we watched, the first cases in the country erupt out in the Seattle area and predominantly in that assisted living facility, that was something to be aware of before it even arrived here. So we did a lot of education, a lot of providing of personal protective equipment, working with our emergency operations center to get PPE out to them. And then as things kind of moved along, there was some concern that, things were, not staying as stable as we'd like for them to. And Sparrow Health System went out and did some audits across the county to all of the facilities and places like that. Just kind of took a look at what they were doing in order to kind of identify where some of the gaps and needs were. Did we need to teach, even at a long-term care facility where we have healthcare people, how to properly put on and take off personal protective equipment, things like that. So then we also partnered with emergency, EMS systems across the county that also helped us go in and evaluate some things within those systems and make some changes, do some additional education. And then as we started to have a few more cases, case counts in our long-term care facilities have stayed quite low, relatively speaking. But as we did start to see those case counts go up, I go back to how fortunate we were to have a more significant testing capacity than a lot of counties across the state. And so the governor at some point in time said, if you have the capacity, we weren't testing asymptomatic people, but if you have the capacity, you may now go past the criteria and as a public health, driven strategy. So we had to identify it as public health, go in and do some of this targeted testing, even in asymptomatic places. So we went into Ingham County Medical Facility, we went into Bircham Hills, and they had already put them in certain wings, and we did testing of entire wings to identify asymptomatic positives and get them, basically isolated from the rest of the populations as well. So we were doing that early on, and then along came basically an initiative from the state where they sent the National Guard in to do testing also in our long-term care facilities. So that has happened and continues, and testing just kind of continues. So all of that testing has allowed us to do all of the proper quarantine and isolation and keep those case counts and those outbreaks relatively under control. I think our first cases in Ingham County were at Vista Springs, and very quickly there were just literally no more cases there. Ingham County Medical Facility as well as Bircham Hills have had a few more cases. We continue to work both of those facilities and with both of those facilities, continuing to do testing, continuing to make sure that, even, obviously, I think it probably is fairly clear that at this point in time where we don't have people visiting long-term care assisted living facilities, you don't have the people living in those facilities really going out. And so the cases probably coming in now are coming in from asymptomatic employees. And so then we had to, really be very vigorous about employee testing as well. So that's kind of a jumbled summary of a lot of that activity.
I appreciate it. My last question has to do with realizing that many of the underserved population that are affected with this, we were very lucky in this community to have the Ingham County Health Department and the facilities that you have. Has part of that also been an education process when you're out there doing the testing, talking about the health opportunities that they have at the different centers that are available to them that some might not realize that are available out there?
I'm going to let Debbie take that one.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question. It definitely has been a great opportunity for us to share the work that we do at the Ingham County Health Department, and we take advantage of that every time. It also was an opportunity as we partnered with shelters, and I will say that the shelters in Lansing have done an outstanding job. We've tested in the shelters, and to date, there have been none of the homeless population who tested positive. And that really speaks volumes to the shelters and the work that they did early on and how they, really closed things and put together some other things, as well as the city of Lansing, which helped them to come up with the choice shelter. So that was really helpful. And so, yes, again, we have had opportunities to share the work that we do at Ingham County Health Department. So it really extended our capacity of advertising the work that we do. So thank you for that question.
You all set, Councilmember Wood?
Yes, thank you, President Spatafor, I am.
Thank you. Next, we have Councilmember Dunbar, followed by Councilmember Betts. Kathy, you're not unmuted. Hold on.
Done?
We'll be done with Zoom by the time we all figure this out.
I don't know.
Go ahead, Councilmember Dunbar.
I was hoping that you ladies could take a moment, since we have you here with an audience, and this is going to be replayed several times, as folks who are intimately involved in the regulations regarding what is regulated, mandated, recommended, et cetera. Now that businesses are reopening, what should we expect businesses to be doing? What should we expect customers to be doing? What should we be looking for as citizens to see who's complying and not complying with the safety regulations?
Right, so I think we're up to, I forget how many, 100 and something executive orders, so as you might imagine, they're a little hard to keep up with. And as we went back into the workplace, in addition to the executive orders that shut things down, there were executive orders about workplace safeguards. So those executive orders about workplace safeguards are very informative in terms of those things. Some of the things that you should expect to see is workplace screening. So employees going into the workplace are required to be screened. The executive order says must at a minimum screen for symptoms and possible or known exposure. We're trying to help you more than that here in Ingham County and actually across the region, because we're working with the Chamber of Commerce as well to give you a tool that will help you do that, rather than having to try to, figure out what symptoms I'm screening for. That's not your work to figure out. That's our work to help you figure out. Masks are required in the food industry, so the food supply industry, for anybody that's at the counter at the registers. I would suggest that as retail opens, I haven't seen that as a requirement of retail. I was just looking for it yesterday, and I was at a place that had opened over the weekend, and I did suggest to them, I said, you really should have your person who's at the cash register wearing a mask. And I'm going to be looking through the executive orders to make sure that hopefully that's in there somewhere. So you should expect that. The other things that you should expect to see is enhanced cleaning protocols, a lot of signage, some signage directions on the floor that help people stay that socially distanced. And hopefully a lot of cooperation with the health department, so that as soon as we identify a case or a potential case, we're quickly doing the appropriate contact tracing to basically minimize the impact in that workplace, which then protects the public as well. So I would anticipate as we move into the next stage that just like the governor has done with regions 6 and 8, where she has opened up, that the guidelines that are in that executive order, which say, I think inside, it's 25% of your capacity or 250 people, whichever is smaller. And then outside gatherings are increasing from where they are right now is 100 to, I think, up to 2, I forget what it is, but for sports gatherings, it goes all the way up to 500. So I think it's 250. So, you should expect to see situations where we are creating systems, we're creating systems that allow for that spacing. You should expect to see some things like plexiglass shields, maybe that they're installing at Lowe's or, those kinds of places. Those are the things that businesses the steps that they should be taking appropriately to make sure that they protect not only their employees, but all of the people that are coming in from the public. That's kind of a high level nutshell on that.
Good with that.
You are not required to screen the public coming into a business. However, there are businesses that will, and I certainly encourage it. We of course will in our building, and other, you might see that at the courthouse. So screening the public coming into the building can also be a very good idea. The availability of like the no-touch thermometers as the supply chain is kind of caught up to where those are a little bit more available right now, if that's something you need to do. What we're trying to create right now is a web-based tool, similar to what Sparrow Occupational Health has made available to those organizations that they serve, where your employees can basically get on every morning, answer the screening questions. It will give them a green check mark or a red X, and then basically screening coming in the door, as opposed to stopping and asking everybody all these questions, especially for larger employers. Doesn't slow down the process of getting people into work, because I can show you my green check mark on my screen. I did my screening this morning, and now I'm going on into the office. So we're working with the chamber and with Michigan State University to get that going, to be more available broadly to employers across the county, no matter how big or large they are, and whether they are a Sparrow OcMed client or not. So that's the other thing.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Betts.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Debbie and Linda, for both being here today. I have one question. We're all aware of the racial disparities in the pandemic. What, if there is a second wave, hopefully there isn't, but if there is, does your department have any plans to reduce those disparities moving forward if we do see this again, and what are those plans?
So, you know, and Debbie told you some of the objectives earlier on. I would say that the plans that we have in place are the plans that we will continue to have in place for a second wave. We've learned a lot during this one, so I would expect those plans to get enhanced. But the nature of how this happened and why is beyond us just being able to test and contact trace our way out of it. When we went down to a point where, okay, essential workers, all of that is essential workers, you know, the grocery store, the Lowe's that stayed open, all of those stores, you know, those people are probably minimum wage, low hourly wage level workers. And you know, probably if we looked at it, that they are predominantly poor people and predominantly people of color. And they are the very people that we put out every day, not just our healthcare workers and our emergency responders, but a lot of people that kept those grocery stores running and things like that. And I think that caused a disproportionate exposure because they didn't get to stay home. They did not have the privilege to telework, right? There is privilege in social distancing. There is privilege in staying home, okay? There's a lot of privilege built into that. And we should know that we are privileged to be able to work from home, to have a job that allows that. We are privileged to be able to stay home, even if we're not working from home, because I don't have to worry about paying the next bill, about keeping my children fed, about all of those, so many things. I don't have to worry about immediately getting evicted. Fortunately, there were a lot of controls put in place. You add on top of that the predominance of things like use of public transportation, overcrowded housing, in some cases multi-generational and multi-family housing. And I'm going to let Debbie speak to some of the rest of these things because she lives it, and I just know that I need to understand it and be part of the solution. So
thank you. So I will say that, you know, what Linda just highlighted is very true. Those are the intrinsic things that are part of our fabric that we need to look at. Those are the things that we're going to have to really grapple with as a community about those folks. So some of the things that we learned, though, that we have been doing is about co-crafting culturally appropriate and targeted messages. So, you know, usually all of our stuff, our billboards are in English. Not everybody can speak English. So putting together messages in different languages that others can see. Doing some asset mappings. What do we already have in the community? And sort of taking a look at that, and how do we ensure that those communities have the things that they need? Centering and amplifying the assets and the ability of the community, how we can come together. I mean, I really, again, think of the shelters as a place that we need to be coming together with now and preparing and thinking ahead. So I do think that we've learned some things, but I do think as a community, there's a whole lot more other things that we all are going to have to grapple with to determine how we prevent this possible next wave.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Betts, are you all set?
We're all good. Thank you for those answers. I was interested. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilmember
Thank you.
Spitzley.
Thank you for the question. It's very important question.
Thank you. Councilmember Spitzley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Linda and Debbie. You know, one of the things that living on the south end of town and in the 48910 and the 48911 area, along with Councilmember Hussein and Councilmember Betts over here, and most of them, you know, I was really fascinated, and Councilmember Garza, I was fascinated by everybody. Mostly everybody lives over here. It's a great place to live. But I was really fascinated by the cluster of the Asian population, and I know, you know, you read into the newspapers of kind of where it came from, but I am curious to your outreach. You know, did you, you know, how did you, what was your how did you educate them? What was your outreach? And how did that work?
So we looked at where we had high numbers of folks testing positive, and then we went to those areas and we did some actual some outreach on the ground kind of outreach. We went sort of door to door. We worked with St. Vincent's and Refugee Development Center in helping us put things in different languages. And so it was really an on the ground, door to door. We put packets together of information in multiple, I mean, probably about 14 languages. So if they spoke something, they could dig in that packet and find themselves or what the language in which they spoke so that they could have an understanding of what COVID-19 is. Additionally, we asked some of our other partners to reach out to folks who they're working with to make some telephone calls to talk about what COVID is. And they also took some initiative on their own, and so they were doing that alone. And so that's really, it was an on the ground, door to door kind of outreach that we did.
Yeah, I want to go ahead. I'm sorry, Linda.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Please continue.
Oh, I was just going to say that, you know, again, you know, data can be boring to a lot of people, and data is data, but that data did drive us to know what, to understand what was going on. It wasn't until we saw that continue to grow, and all of a sudden it's like, what's happening in 48911? And then just taking all of the data, all of the, you know, the cases in 48911, and just dissecting that apart and analyzing it, which really pointed us to a targeted and specific action that we could take. And that is why we look at this geographic and demographic breakdown of data, so that we truly can use that as a tool to react, and now hopefully be proactive with as well, in terms of being able to be where we need to be and be with the people we need to be with.
Well, I want to say thank you. That was very well done. One of my neighbors had COVID, and it was the Asian population, and they could trace it back to one of those two industries. And so I really want to, that was very, very good work done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice President Hussein.
You know, my question was actually answered, but I will take the opportunity to thank Linda and Debbie for pointing out so many of the things that we've been working really hard to address. I think in the 48911 zip code, and we've come up short, candidly, and we got a lot of work to do. You know, when you look at income inequality, when you look at the types of jobs that we have to offer our residents, when you look at the equitable distribution of resources to make sure that we're building and advancing our community, when you look at the prevalence of predatory businesses, to be candid, you know, when you look at the fact that there are parts of 48911 that could be considered healthcare deserts. And so sometimes it's difficult for people to access quality healthcare. So I just want to say that, you know, as we move forward, we need to make sure that we continue to partner, you know, with the county, you know, and I think partner with our state officials, but that, you know, everything we do, I think at the center of our work needs to be the fact that there is an equity that exists in our county. There is an equity that exists within our city. And we need to make sure that that serves as kind of the backdrop of everything we do. So I really appreciate you, Linda. I really appreciate you, Debbie, being here. This is an incredibly important conversation. I think it's something that will guide us as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. And just in the interest of showing how business may look different when things come back to normal, I did want to just, our office manager has shared with me some photos of what city council chambers will look like when we get back to business. So I thought I'd just give you a quick preview of that for those of you following along at home. So as you see, Sherry has put in some spacing requirements for the audience and spacing in the waiting area. And as well as, I think this might be something that council should have had a long time ago. There's some privacy and the dividers between us, so we won't get into any fights with the sneeze guards there. So I think every industry is thinking creatively and how we're going to deal with the reality of CDC guidelines and whatnot. So appreciate you being here and sharing your data with us. I find data exciting, so I appreciate that it was there. Thank you for your time, Debbie and Linda, for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we had some trouble with LCC getting on, so they're going to join us. But we're gonna move to our Juneteenth celebration, and I think Marilyn Plummer, if you're on, if you'd like to please turn your at least your audio on, or your camera and audio, Marilyn, if you're here. There you are. Marilyn,
Thank you.
Hello.
there you are.
Okay. I can't tell on my end if the
Nope.
is showing.
The PowerPoint's not up yet. Hold on just a second.
Appreciate you being here. Me? Share.
No, not yet, Mr. Mayor.
Not yet there.
Marilyn up, and I got to find the right PowerPoint to put up here.
Okay.
I'm earning some resume skills throughout this process. All right, Marilyn, we are on the first slide.
All right. Thank you so much. So, hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to join our Lansing city, our great city of Lansing. So, I want to say to the honorables who are serving as our council members, and certainly President Spataford and my councilman, Vice President Hussein, all of you council members, Betson, Dunbar, and Garza, Jack Quickly, and Wood. I think I've gotten you all. It is my pleasure to be here on behalf of the Lansing Juneteenth Committee. We are here in light of our current situation. We've just heard the presentation from our England County representatives about COVID, our pandemic, and how we are working within those realms. And so the Juneteenth Committee are here. I think many of them are watching. And we'd like to just share with you, in light of this pandemic, we are being very creative to still share a message with the city of Lansing, the participants. The Juneteenth Committee has been around since 1993. And we continue to be here to share our message of freedom. If I may, in addition to the Lansing Juneteenth Committee, and we are a committee of 25 plus strong, can we, let's see, go to the next slide. Thank you. So there I am, and our chairman of our board. The Juneteenth is a proud product of the PEERS, which stands for the Progressive Empowerment Education Resource Services. Our chairman, the Reverend Dr. Richard Goss, I believe he is with me. Going to see if, I'm not sure that he can be visible or vocal at the moment, but on behalf of that board, and our members are listed.
Yeah, I'm unmuted, Marilyn, so whenever you.
Oh, thank you. All right, I present to you all the Reverend Dr. Richard Goss, who is our chairman of our peers board. If I could look for a moment to allow him to have a word about.
Thank you, Marilyn. Members of City Council and of course, others who are in attendance. First, let me thank you for this opportunity to come before you again. As Marilyn had already forestated, we have been celebrating in the city of Lansing since 1993. So we are on our 27th year. And of course, since 2005, the Juneteenth Freedom Day has been a statewide holiday, and we have been very, very pleased down through the years to have our partnership with the city of Lansing in general, and in this council in particular, in making sure that the message about Juneteenth goes about. And I'm sure you have been thinking in the days when you've been seeing all of the protests all over the city, how does Juneteenth tie into that? Well, you're already there. We're talking about freedom. We're talking about citizen participation, as well as involvement in the day-to-day activities that makes our democracy a great form of government. So we thank you for that. With that, as Marilyn has also shared with you, due to these days of COVID-19, we're not able to celebrate as we typically would, but we do continue to thank our partnerships through the years. So we are moving towards next year, our scholarship and many of our other activities, but we will still be meeting, even though we do meet as you're meeting now via Zoom, and making sure that the message of Juneteenth in terms of freedom for everyone is, of course, something that is taking place. And as you know, as we've been sharing with history, we know that Juneteenth started as simply an African-American celebration of freedom, but because of your openness and ability to listen, that you have embraced this and you've made it a celebration that everyone can find their place in. And with that, I'll yield the time back to Sister Marilyn Plummer.
Okay, and thank you. As we're moving forward, we have an additional slide. And if we could move, thank you. So on behalf of my fabulous group, the Lansing Juneteenth Committee, 25 members strong, they say to you, irregardless of not being physically present to have those celebrations, our 3 days of celebrations that we typically would have. And we've mentioned our scholarship essay contest, our ceremonial programs at City Hall in the state capitol, the parade, which we've done now, going into our, would have been our 4th year, that's been in memory of the African American parade, and the former leader of that was the late Reverend Dr. Michael C. Murphy. So all of that, and certainly the celebrations at our Lansing local parks, the last number of years we've been at St. Joseph Park in Lansing, celebrating with you on Fridays and Saturdays. So with all of that said, we miss that. We're going to be creative, and we're going to be back next year, bigger and better. So we do appreciate all that the Lansing community and the region has done in support of the years of 27 years of celebration of Juneteenth. So this year, as we continue, the celebration has to change. So what we're doing is a public service message, a tribute. I'm going to ask for our next and final slide. Thank you. That's going to be the mayor's proclamation. Thank you. This is the one I'm looking for. Just to share with those who are viewing and the Lansing community, the June 19th, 1865 is the symbolism of Freedom Day. The Lansing Juneteenth celebration, again, as we commemorate 27 years of celebrating in Lansing. We think that's a big deal, and we couldn't let the opportunity pass because of the pandemic. We still have a voice and we still have a message. So please watch for our PSA, which will be a number of public service announcements on June 19th, which is a Friday, on your local broadcasting station. And also please follow us on our Lansing Juneteenth website and speakers there, the LansingJuneteenthCelebration.org. And at the bottom is the official national flag of the Juneteenth Freedom Day. So with that, we want to say thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for allowing us to share. Thank you for allowing us to let you all know we are still alive and well during this time. We're concerned about many of our people, our neighbors, and it's just good to be able to yet share with you just the opportunity, again, of the annual recognition of Juneteenth, which we all have been a part of. And you all have participated with over the years. So thanks again, and we appreciate your support of all these years.
Thank you, Marilyn. We appreciate you for being here, for sharing it. Make sure that we get that PSA on City TV. Before we let you all go, though, I'll hand the gavel over to Council Member Hussein, quite metaphorically, I suppose, the gavel. But I would like to make a motion to approve the resolution offered by all the City Council members commemorating Juneteenth, resolving the Lansing City Council hereby recognizes the 27th annual Lansing celebration of Juneteenth and the 16th year recognition of the state of Michigan Juneteenth holiday. We extend our appreciation to the Juneteenth Committee for all their work in continuing the founding theme, Juneteenth, where the reunion begins. We wish you continued success. I move the resolution.
Thank you, President Spatafor. There's a motion on the table for the discussion. Seeing none, City Clerk.
Okay, on adoption of the resolution, Councilmember Betts,
Yes.
Councilmember Dunbar,
Yes.
Councilmember Garza,
Yes.
Councilmember Hussein,
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson,
Yes.
Councilmember Spatafor,
Yes.
Councilmember Spitzley,
Yes.
Councilmember Wood.
Yes.
8 yeas, the resolution is adopted.
Thank you very much. Reverend Doss, Marilyn, thank you so much for being here. It looks like Councilmember Wood may have something to add to the deliberations. Councilmember Wood.
Yes, thank you, President Spatafor. I know that Marilyn talked a little bit about the scholarship. If people wanted to donate this year that would go toward the scholarship for next year, could she tell us where those donations could be made?
Marilyn?
I would love to. As I had just shared with you, the website for the Lansing Juneteenth Committee, if you go to our webpage, there is our website. There is a webpage that reflects the essay contest, and you can look there, as well as there's a section that identifies for contributions, generally a PayPal method. But we would love for any contribution in support of the programming that certainly will be back bigger and better next year. So we will definitely accept and support donations on behalf of the essay contest.
And thank you, Madam President and Member Wood. There's also a donate page on our website, and you can make those gifts through that mechanism.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time, and we are moving on to our next presentation with Lansing Community College regarding SLU 3-2020. We spoke a little bit about this in the Committee of the Whole, but I will ask LCC folks to please come on board, introduce yourself for the public, and just give us a quick presentation on SLU 3-2020.
Thank you, President Spatafor. This is Chris McCursey, Executive Director of Administrative Services at LCC. I can't see who else of my team that's on there, but I believe that I have our Facility Director, Tim Martz, our Property Attorney, Brent Titus, our partner from Chrisman Company, Craig Smith, and other members of the design team from Rich and Associates here. And we thank you for the opportunity to present our project to you. If you don't mind, sir, sharing your screen, I do have a couple of photos to put up for you.
Yep, let me, go ahead, you're all set.
Thank you, sir. So the Gannon ramp, which is located on the corner of Grand Avenue and Saginaw, was built in 1976 and is now coming up on 20 years beyond its expected serviceable life. Over the last several years, we've spent upwards of $500,000 making critical infrastructure repairs to keep it up and running safely. approximately 2 years ago, the engineers just got to the point and told us, fellas, it's time to replace the ramp. At that time, we started an ongoing conversation with city staff about different parking solutions and what that might look like. As many of you are aware, the original solution also had a parking ramp going in to Capitol and Shiawassee as numbered S23. And part of that was to provide parking at both ends of the campus. That's one of the ends of the campus that parking fills up first, and then it split the parking between those two locations. But in response to feedback from local residents, from local businesses, from the community planning board, members of council, we went back to the drawing board. We were asked to work with the city to see what we could do to design a ramp in the Gannon location that would meet those needs without the need to build the ramp at the other location of Shiawassee and Capitol. Fortunately, the city has been, city staff, especially Brian McCrane, Andy Kilpatrick, Chad Gamble, and many others have been great partners for us. And so we all collectively with our college's design team went back to the drawing board and were able to work out a plan to develop a Gannon ramp that would meet the long-term needs of the college and also address the many concerns that were brought to us. Part of that is that the city is stepping forward to assist us with temporary parking for the 18 months it's going to take us to demolish the current Gannon ramp and then to rebuild it. And so without that assistance, I'm not sure the solution would be possible. So I want to show you another photo of what the Gannon ramp is going to essentially take up the same footprint of the existing ramp. However, it'll look not a whole lot different. It will still be brick. It'll be contemporary. And this is the street or the view that you would see from Saginaw here. And the glass is intended to tie into the beautiful glass that's on the current Gannon Commons. And so from the street, we'll think it'll have good aesthetics. It will be brick. We also think that it'll have good access and egress as we've split the entrance and the egress for both quite a distance apart. In addition to that, we have planned access and egress off Schoolcraft. So we think that the facility will even have, with this design, better access than the current ramp does, even with a change to the planned city to move to two-way change. Just as an overview, reading over the staff report, it appears that regarding special land use, the analysis, the submittal meets all requirements, that the zoning of this request meets all zoning requirements, and ultimately we understand that the project was recommended by the staff. Again, we appreciate the feedback that we've received from the community and especially the hard work that was put in by city staff to partner with us to get to this solution. And at this time, I'm happy to entertain any questions that the council might have.
Sure. So with council, do we have any further questions? While you're raising your hands, I do want to thank LCC again publicly for listening to the feedback and revising your plans according to that feedback. We really do appreciate it. It shows that you're listening and a really good long-term neighbor we're glad to have around. So we appreciate that. I do see Councilmember Wood has her hand up.
Thank you, President Spatafor. I too first want to thank you for listening to the concerns of council members and the community. I think that was very important. I know that there has, and I realize it has nothing to do with the vote this evening, but I understand you're going to be making some improvements to that lot that you were looking at building the ramp on. Could you speak a little bit to that at this time?
Well, the asphalt that's currently there is long past its expected life expectancy. Since we already did the majority of the landscaping around it, we want to leave that in place. We're very happy with that previous work. And essentially, we're looking to go in there and get down to the substrate, remove the asphalt, and have a pretty parking lot with new lights.
The asphalt that you're putting in, is it pervious, or what are you looking at?
It'll be a standard asphalt parking lot.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And
Yes,
again,
ma'am.
thank you. Thank you for your work with the community.
Our pleasure.
Peter, we can't hear you.
Oh, wow. Failed at my own game here. I want to thank you for being here this evening. We're going to move on to the next item, but just a reminder to the council, we do have this item up for a vote. There's a public hearing this evening, as well as the vote on this resolution to move it forward so that LCC may begin construction on that ramp. So thank you for being here this evening, and moving on to a presentation by City Clerk Chris Swope on absentee voting. And I will say I just got my absentee ballot application. Before we move on, though, I do want to just LCC, thanks for being here again, but please give our best to Dr. Steve Robinson, the new president of LCC, and we look forward to meeting with him as a body sometime in the post-COVID period. So, Mr. Clerk.
Thank you. Thank you, President Spatafor. And I do have a slideshow here, so let me share that. Okay, so the reason that I wanted to talk tonight is because there are some things starting to happen with the August election that I want voters to know about. It is a quickly moving time right now. We do have 2 remaining elections this year, the August 4th general election and the November 3rd general election. And so some of the changes that came into place with Proposal 3 of 2018, there's no deadline for voter registration. Up to the 15th day before the election, voters can register in person at an Secretary of State branch office, clerk's office, by mail, or at several designated state agencies, as well as, in fact, if you have a Michigan driver's license or state ID, you can register online at Express SOS. And then the 14th day, in order to be able to vote in that election, you do have to register in person in the clerk's office, and you do have to provide verification of your residency. And if you mail in an application after that time, we will send you a notification in the mail that if you want to vote, register and vote in this election, you do need to come in person. And then again, on election day now, voters can still register in person with the clerk's office and provide residency verification in order to vote. So on election day, you have until 8:00 p.m. And you come to the clerk's office, and we do have 2 locations that will be open to the public. That's City Hall as well as 2500 South Washington with your proof of residency. It can be primarily a state ID, but it could be a utility bill, a pay stub, or something else that shows your address, and it can be an electronic document. We, in March and this past November, we saw a lot of people who had documents on their phone that they were able to use to verify their address. And the voters can either vote right there in the clerk's office via an absentee ballot, or they can get a receipt and take it with them to the precinct. Just the general guidelines to be able to vote: a U.S. citizen, 18 years old by election day, and a resident of the city for 30 days before the election. Michigan is very open in terms of folks who are serving sentences. Once your sentence is completed and you're a returning citizen, you can register and vote. You can vote while you're awaiting trial or arraignment. Even while you're on parole or probation, people can vote. So voting at home is the easiest way, especially during this time of COVID and trying to maintain distance. So you submit an application. We mail a ballot to you. When you're ready, you return the ballot. We do have 2 current drop-off, 24-hour drop-off locations, or you can mail it back. The post office is suggesting that you give your ballot a week if you want to put it in the mail. They generally return them faster than that, but you don't want to count on that. So we do recommend mailing it a week before the election if you're using the postal system. We do have to receive it by 8 o'clock election night. It's not the postmark, it's when it's received in the clerk's office. To vote in person, you can come to either of our locations, City Hall or South Washington, and pick up your ballot in person. And that begins 40 days before the election and continues up through Election Day. Although on the 4 o'clock the day before, the Monday before the election, we have to stop issuing ballots, and then Election Day is intended only for those who are registering that day to vote in person at the clerk's office. If you're already registered, you can vote in your precinct on Election Day. And then I do want to highlight that we have weekend hours. The weekend before the election for August, we will be open 11 a.m. till 5 p.m. both Saturday and Sunday before this August election. So it's a great opportunity if you haven't thought of it and want to vote. Again, we have to receive your ballot by 8 o'clock election night. We do have 2 current drop box locations. We are looking to add some other locations, but we haven't finalized that. So I'll let folks know if there are other options that we would like to have in place at least by November. If you have an absentee ballot and you decide you want to vote at your polling place on Election Day, you can't use that ballot. So what you'll have to do is surrender your absent voter ballot or sign a statement that you lost or destroyed it, and then you can vote in the polls on Election Day, whether or not you've been issued an absent voter ballot. We do have a permanent application list where we'll mail you an application for every election. We're up to somewhere around 16,000 voters on that right now, so a lot of people are taking advantage of that in the city of Lansing. And then just a couple of notes about the upcoming elections. August 4th is a partisan primary, and the primary goal is for the political parties to pick their candidates for the November election. So you cannot vote in both political parties. You have to stay in your lane, and you can't bounce back and forth between offices. You have to just vote in one political party. And then for this election, we don't have any, well, we do have proposals. We don't have any nonpartisan candidates, but there are proposals. Everybody can vote the proposals. In fact, there's the Parks millages on the August ballot. And for most voters, the ballot is 2-sided. So make sure and look at the back or you're going to miss a couple of things. And then for the November election, we do have straight ticket voting is back. It was gone for one election in 2018, but now it's a constitutional right, so it will be there in every November even year election. And then don't forget there are nonpartisan and proposals on the ballot, and that will be a 2-sided ballot as well. So some key dates. This week, we will have 60,000 absentee ballot applications going in the mail. And this is to people who are not on the permanent absent voter list. The Secretary of State determined was going to send those out and gave communities the opportunity to do their own mailing and get reimbursed for that. So we are taking advantage of that. So we'll be mailing those out. Look for those in the mail in the next week. And it will be an application that is for both August and November. For the people that are already on the permanent absent voter list, you should have already gotten your application. And many, I think about 12,000 voters, when they submitted their application for March, that also took care of August and November. So a lot of voters don't need to fill out another application for August and November, about 12,000. About 5,000 Lansing voters have recently gotten an application, and then another 60,000 or so will be getting one in the next week or so. We will start mailing the ballots Thursday, June 25th. That's also the day we'll be open for the public to come in and pick up their ballot in person if they choose to do that. Again, we're open Saturday, August 1st and 2nd, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. That weekend time, we only do at South Washington. So City Hall will not be open, but any other weekday, City Hall will be open for the in-person absentee voting, including the day before the election up until 4 p.m. and the day of the election until 8 p.m. And then the election is August 4th. Giving you some of the dates for November. September 24th is that day when we'll be mailing most of the ballots and opening up for in-person absentee voting. The weekend is Halloween and November 1st, so we have not yet determined how many hours will be open, and it may be based on our forecast of what the demand will be and how many ballots we've already issued and how many voters we think will still be coming in. Tuesday, November 3rd is the presidential election, so I encourage everyone to participate. There are a lot of issues going on right now with leadership and questions of leadership. So your way to really participate is to cast your vote in that election. Also, another exciting thing that I want to announce is our mail vendor for the city of Lansing has developed a new program that will track your ballot, both on its way to you as well as coming back through the mail. So we'll be able to see where it is if ballots got stuck somewhere. So that is another feature we've added. And so I encourage everyone to give us their email address. That way they'll be able to get that information directly about where their ballot is and when it's coming. And the way that's working is because it's election mail, we can actually use a nonprofit postage rate. We don't generally do that because with the mail not being trackable, because we're nervous about the ballots not making it there. But with this tracking program, we can actually take full advantage of that. And so it will actually be costing us less per piece to mail these ballots out than it otherwise would. And we'll be able to track ballots that are seeming to have gone lost. And then here are just some resources where you can get information, register to vote. The League of Women Voters at vote411.org has great information about candidates. They do put together some nonpartisan information. So a lot of partners have great information about how to vote, how to research your candidates, how to make your decisions. But the important thing is to plan your vote and then execute your plan, and that really helps encourage turnout. So I think that's the end of my.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk, for your very informative presentation. So August 4th and November what?
Third.
Third, very good. All right, I was just seeing if you're paying attention.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to move on now out of our special presentations to comments by the city council members and city clerk. So please raise your hand if you have any comments to add to this meeting. Councilmember Brian Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Normally, I don't like to say comments. I like to listen, but I've been inspired and motivated by some of these events in our city and beyond. And I think to be silent on some of these issues is to be complicit on some of these issues. So I first want to thank the protesters and support the protesters. I saw on City Clerk's presentation a Martin Luther King picture, who was also a protester. And with a cause so serious of police misconduct, police brutality, institutional racism, and how I support everybody's First Amendment right, those two things combined is why I appreciate everything that's going on. I would encourage all the protesters in the city and nationwide and even international to keep the pressure on us elected officials and the people in charge. If you guys hadn't done some of the things you've done, we wouldn't be talking about change today and serious about it. This feels a lot different this time around. We've gained so many allies throughout, bipartisan support, police chiefs in certain places, international countries and their citizens has been supporting this cause. So I feel that we just need to keep this momentum going. I would like to say that I think the Lansing Police Department is a good police department. I think that our police department is better than most in the area. I am proud and I do like Chief Green as our chief. I think he has his heart in the right place. But, we're not perfect and there has to be some change. And it's not necessarily our police department as much as it is the police culture. So one thing that is worrisome to a point is that there is no consensus on how to do that. And I've heard a lot of great ideas from many people already. And I would like to offer at least two ideas that I think the city can do that might help. And one is to have all police contact. If a police officer makes contact with a person, whether they interview them as a witness, arrest them and end up charging them or hold them as a suspect, there should be a card given to each individual that is how to file a police complaint. And it should be easy and it should happen. I think that if we really know the extent of what's going on in Lansing, we'll be able to address some of the what should we do about it. And if we encourage citizens to report misconduct and give them an easy lane to a meaningful, independent, and transparent investigation where the results are public, then we might be able to see what we're dealing with. Also, another idea would be to improve the community police relationship would be to have either through the mayor or preferably through the chief to mandate officers to stop pretextual traffic stops against all travelers. If it's not a serious moving violation, for example, if a plate light is out in the daytime, you can be pulled over. Stop doing that. If there's in your visor, if there's a hanging smell good or anything hanging, stop pulling people over for that. And stop just running people's plates. I think that the harm done is outweighed by the possible gain of a petty traffic violation. people feel profiled, people are profiled. And I think if we stop some of these contacts, we could at least build trust, because most people only have contact with police during traffic stops for the most part. And if they feel profiled and if they feel like people aren't being fair to them, one, they should have an easy way to complain. But two, it really shouldn't happen because it ultimately does more harm. So I just am glad that we're listening, but I also want to know what's the best move forward, because I want to support that move forward. And again, remember, a lot of times the news cycle changes so soon. After a couple weeks, people forget. So that's another reason why I support the protesters and the change agents, because time and time again we don't take action. So thank you, and that's all I have to say about that.
Thank you, Councilmember Jackson. Councilmember Garza.
Thank you, Mr. President. I didn't expect to be on so soon. I figured other people would be raising their hands. I didn't see all the raised hand functions. So, hey, Councilmember Jackson, well said. I appreciate that statement. I love Lansing. I love my people. I love my community. I hope this brings everybody together. I hope everybody takes a real good look at their friends and family members that may say something that you don't normally think would be racist, but maybe take a look at that stuff now and call them out on it. I mean, it's sad we're in 2020 and this still is going on. And I'd hate to see our city burn to the ground. I mean, people love each other, hug each other. If you're out there protesting, talk about your personal experiences. If you're sitting next to a black gentleman or Asian person or whatever race you may be, talk about it. Try to learn a little bit about their culture. I'm sure you got more in common than you would ever even imagine. So, I mean, that's all I really have to say. I just want to bring harmony and peace and love to all of my brothers and sisters in our community. And we love every one of you, and God bless and be safe out there.
Thank you. Councilmember Spitzley.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to also talk about, just briefly, I said something on Facebook, but, I absolutely supported and continue to support the people's right to protest. That is the First Amendment right is really the bedrock of this nation, and we must be able to assemble and protest when we see injustices. And clearly, the murder of George Floyd was that injustice, and we've seen throughout history how that type of protest affects meaningful change. It was what kind of disturbed me about the protest was when one group comes to interrupt, a righteous group's, protest. And I saw that on Sunday. I'm talking about the gentleman who was at the protest in his Hawaiian shirt with his AK-47. And the question is why are you there? You absolutely have the right to be there. That's your First Amendment right to be there. But, you're there not to support people's active rights to protest. You're there to cause division. And,
Oh, I didn't do that. Let's see if we can get her back. Councilmember Spitzley appears to have left the meeting momentarily, so we'll move on to Councilmember Hussein, and when she comes back, we'll resume with Councilmember Spitzley. Councilmember Hussein.
Yeah, and certainly, feel free to interrupt. While we were, engaging in our meditation, obviously we recognized Ahmaud Arbery, and we recognized George Floyd, and we recognized Miss Breonna Taylor, and we prayed for their families. I just want to also address the fact that, to truly honor them, we have to continue to engage in, national conversations regarding policing, police policy, excessive force, growing diversity, really within our respective police departments. The list goes on, and I think critically important is to do something with those conversations. And so, I know in the city of Lansing, particularly post June of 2019, we have been having important conversations. There have been changes, but we know that, our police department, and they'd admit it, is still imperfect. We as city council members are still imperfect. So we have ground to make still. And so, I truly look forward to the work ahead. I love Councilmember Jackson's comments about ensuring, folks continue to hold us accountable, that we hold each other accountable in terms of continuing these conversations, but more importantly, putting measures in place that result in productive and meaningful and lasting change. And the work, it's going to be messy at times. It's going to be uncomfortable, but I think collectively we can get it done. And so I just wanted to make that comment. And I see Councilwoman Spitzley is back, so I will concede the rest of my time there.
Councilman Spitzley, did you enjoy your walk?
You know what? Your computer decides to reboot on the update at the darndest times, and that's all I'm going to say about that one. So, no, you know what? I'm not going to go, on. I heard Councilmember Jackson, Councilmember Garza, and Councilmember Hussein, and I echo that. I want to thank Chief Green. I think that he's doing a wonderful job. Our Lansing Police Department is, I think, one of the best. We are not without our history, but I think that we recognize that we have had a history and that we have moved forward to make those changes to be better. And so I too am looking for meaningful change, looking to work with my council members, Chief Green and the administration to affect meaningful change. I'm not interested in, having symbolic gestures. I'm looking for actual meaningful change. And so I'm ready to get to work to do that. So thank you for the city. Thank you for our protesters. And I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Spitzley. Councilmember Wood and Councilmember Dunbar.
Thank you, President Spatafor. I too want to thank my colleagues for the comments that they made earlier, and I don't think that there's anyone that's either listening or in our community that does not believe that what happened to George Floyd was not murder. That was a terrible situation that should never have happened. I think one of the things is I remember sitting in the lobby with Councilmember Spitzley a year ago when we had a community forum. Many people came forward and talked about their ideas and suggestions for change. I stood up at that meeting at the very end and I said how much I appreciated everyone's comments, but I said, unless we do something with those comments, they were useless. We needed to take that flip chart where the information was being written on, and we needed to make sure that we were coming up and taking those suggestions short-term, medium, and long-term and making changes so that we weren't back here in a year, 6 months, 2 years from now, stating some of those exact same things that we could have had made some changes for. Now, I do not know today whether some of those changes were worked on and just not aware of them and were not articulated back to council. Hopefully during this process, we will go back and look at those. Meaningful people stood up with meaningful suggestions, and I think it's important that we take a look not only at the comments that are going to be made in the future, but at those comments and look at how we can move forward as a community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Dunbar.
Thank you. I have held my tongue throughout this process. I was not in town for many of the protests, and I've watched it play out on Facebook, on television, gotten in stuff in my email, and I'm gonna say this. I still don't know, and I'm a council member. I still don't know who made the decision to use chemical weapons and projectiles on citizens in the city of Lansing. And I hope that that answer gets shared tonight, because I am appalled that that happened. I am also appalled at the press release that went out, assuming it's from the police department, about the incident involving the woman who drove into the crowd. And I'll tell you why it's offensive to me, because when you look at the language matters, and coding matters, and context matters, and loaded language really affects how people interpret things. And that press release was so loaded with inflammatory language about making assumptions about the protesters and what had happened. And my first thought was, there's video, there's gotta be video. There has to be something that shows what happened. Everything I heard about what happened downtown did not jive with the press release. And I can't for the life of me imagine that when there is video recording of things that happened, how there could be that divergent a story told by two different groups. And so, I'm hoping that there will be follow-up on that, and that an accurate assessment of the situation will be forthcoming, because I just, it pains me. It absolutely pains me. I want to support our police department. I want to, but I want to support our citizens, and I want to make sure that we are really moving forward in a way that is thoughtful and relevant and meaningful, and actually changes something. And I know we're all here saying the same thing. We're all saying we want to move forward, and but specifically on the language used in the press releases, and specifically on looking at how that has been done over time. And it's not just this administration, it's been happening. I went back and looked through several years worth of press, and there's definitely a way that the media uses language. There's a way that public relations folks use language, and it's coded, and that has to stop too. So I hope that we are conscious of that moving forward, and I appreciate the time to say that.
Thank you, Councilmember Dunbar. Up next, we have Councilmember Betts.
Thank you, everybody on council, for saying the words that you've said. I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate that everybody in this council is ready to move forward and get some work done, because we've really got to roll up our sleeves and get the work done. I do want to uplift that, there are things that the Black community is calling for, and I think that as these discussions move forward, us, mostly white people on this council, need to sit back and really think about who should be answering these questions for us, about what we do about the police department, about how we act in the future, about what changes we need to make, because the people who are most affected by police violence aren't us privileged people on this council. It's the Black members of our community who, honestly, we remember so well last year the 16-year-old girl who was beat up by the police department. These things happen, and they happen all the time across the country. And George Floyd, if we don't make changes now, could happen here. And I implore all of us to be paying attention to what the Black community comes out and says that we need to get done. And thank you all for your support in looking for change.
Thank you. And I will just echo thanks to all my colleagues. I think what we've seen in the last week or so has been really a phenomenal grassroots groundswell of protest and effort toward change. And I know it's a gesture, a small one, but I have indicated publicly, and the council, I think, has agreed we're going to do some listening sessions. How that looks exactly yet has to be worked out, but believe you me, Sherry, our office manager, is already hard at work thinking about logistics. The possibility of using the band shell at Adado allows us open air and social distancing to take place. Those types of things for consideration, so that we can have a dialogue. And I plan to have the sessions not run as a committee of the whole meeting, but rather as a dialogue facilitated by a third party, so that the conversation could be more pure. And if we do have indoor activities, they won't be at City Hall, because I know some folks aren't. City Hall's not always a convenient place to go. There's elevators, metal detectors, all that type of thing. So out in the public is where we plan to hold those. And one thing that this council will be engaging on during this process is we will be bringing in a facilitator to work us through racial sensitivity, implicit bias training, so that when we approach this conversation, we understand the privileged positions from which we enter the dialogue. And I hope that will make the dialogue more robust. It will not be the end of the line for this council. It'll just be the beginning of the conversations and the work before us. So I thank you all for your commitment to those efforts and beyond. I know that through a productive dialogue, we can, as a policy and appropriating body, put together policy and budgets that reflect the dialogue and the priorities of this community. So with that, I will move on to the comments by the clerk, who better not give that PowerPoint again.
Touche. I want to make a few comments, and I do appreciate the comments by council members. Many years ago, shortly after I moved into this community, I was appointed by Mayor David Hollister to a committee that existed at the time called the Police Community Relations Commission. We were a group of citizens that met with the police, not the police commissioners, not their supervisory, but just worked on the relationship between the police force and the communities of color. Robert Kennan was the chair of that for many years. We did a lot of really good work. And there were a couple of incidences that happened during that time. The in-jail death of Mr. Swan's, a raid on the Latin American Cultural Club, and we did joint investigations and hearings into those instances with members of the police commission and members of our board. And I think that's a model that maybe needs to be looked at is how do we get to the bottom of what is happening in our community and what the relationships are. Just an idea to throw out there. I also want to mention that one of the honors of my job is that I administer the oath of office to every member of the Lansing Police Department. This morning, I swore in 3 officers and 2 cadets. And I want to say that I'm proud that it was a racially diverse group of new people. I also want to say that Chief Green had some very inspirational words at the beginning of that for the new officers and new cadets. And I think we are in really good hands with Chief Green. So I just want to express that I appreciate his words and his leadership at this time. And then just again, thank you to the council members for this fruitful discussion. And I think we're ready to move on.
I think so. Well,
okay, we are to community event announcements. If anyone in the audience has a community event, we'll give you just a very brief moment to talk about your event, less than 1 minute.
So make sure to, make sure you raise your hands. Hold on, I got the wrong sticky note. To raise your hand on a Mac, it's Option Y. To raise your hand on a PC, it's Alt Y. On your phone, please dial *9. And if you're using another device, use the raise hand in the participant window. Again, this is just for community events, not public comment. So I see Loretta Stanaway first, and then Michael Lynn Jr. Loretta, the floor is yours for a brief moment.
I just want to announce that the Friends of Lansing's Historic Cemeteries will be hosting an open house at the cemetery community, the courtesy office, on Sunday, the 14th at 3 until 5. This is a grand opening open house to introduce the courtesy office to the community and to highlight the volunteers who will be reopening that facility on the following day on Monday. So again, it's Sunday the 14th from 3 to 5 p.m. open house at the Cemetery Courtesy Office, 1709 East Mount Hope, directly across from Mount Hope Cemetery. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Michael Lynn Jr. for a community event announcement. Mr. Lynn?
this is actually Erica Lynn.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's both of us. The Village Lansing. We have an event coming up this Saturday. We're working in conjunction with Lansing School District, who's doing the drive-through ceremony for a diploma for graduates of Lansing School District. We're actually having an open house this Saturday on the Capitol lawn, and we're going to be staggering that out in conjunction with those 3 ceremonies for all of the graduates to come and celebrate with the city of Lansing. So we're going to have food, games, music, performances, speakers. So we're absolutely looking for anybody that wants to partner with us. We are very big on in-kind donations. So people, service, if you'd like to donate money, we could use that too. But again, in-kind is the biggest thing that we're looking for right now. If you think you have something that you could donate towards the event, please inbox the Village Lansing on Facebook and let us know. Or if you want to volunteer, if you want to get involved in any way, just inbox us.
Thank you, Erica, very much. Next is Alyssa Turksack for a community event announcement. Alyssa, you have a brief moment if you want to go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you so much. I would just like to invite the Lansing community for people struggling with addiction. We have a peer support group that is called Refuge Recovery Lansing. It's a Buddhist-inspired path to recovery. Addictions of all kinds. We're also able to sign court slips for those who have attendance requirements. We'll be having our first in-person meeting in months, socially distanced at Moores Park in Rio Town on Thursday at 6 p.m. And if you'd like more information, you can check out Refuge Recovery Lansing's Facebook page. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And I saw someone else, but the person seems to have lowered their hand. So,
Okay, moving on then. We are now to speaker registration for public comment on legislative matters. So if you want to begin raising your hand for public comment on legislative matters, and legislative matters does include the resolutions listed under resolutions for action, as well as the ordinances, the ordinance for introduction. So we will be letting you raise your hand for the next couple of minutes while the mayor is making his comments. And then we will begin calling on you. So we'll be making a list of who's raised their hands.
Mr. Clerk, I'll also point out for folks that are here for non-legislative items, there is a second set of public comment that we get to at the end of the meeting. So if there are general comments not related to the items on the legislative agenda, that is the time to make those comments is at the end of the meeting. Toward the end of the meeting.
Okay, and we are to the mayor's comments.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, council members and members of the public. I would like to agree with what council members said. I want to once again state that I'm just horrified at the killing, at the murder of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor. I know I put out statements, but it's important to say it again here. I've made some missteps in the last week or so, and I'm going to own that. I'm committed to equity here in the city of Lansing, and really I've been doing a lot of listening in the last several days and taking down a lot of ideas, including ideas I just heard from council members here, and I'm sure things we'll hear from the public. And we're creating planning. This is, there's going to be listening, but we're creating action planning, and we're going to be getting with community leaders to do that. One of the things I heard yesterday and the day before at my door, at my home, was funding issues, funding for mental health, and funding for a variety of other things. And I said I would look at the budget, and I did. I looked at our existing budget today. It's almost over. But we were able to identify about $170,000 that we think can be utilized for something like this, for an equity and anti-discrimination fund of some sort. It's not a lot of money, but it's money. So I am sending you all an amendment or a substitute for your next meeting. The budget amendment for the existing year budget, the 1920 budget, is in your queue, and you'll consider it in 2 weeks. We'll try and get you more information, but I think it's small, but we should do something at least where we can to assist those groups that are doing work of equity in our community. So I have done that, and again, I'm gonna keep listening. This is really just a down payment, and then we have to act. So we will work through an action plan, work with you all as leaders of our community, present whatever action plans we have to the community, and work with the community and move forward. It's a time when we need to act, and I appreciate you all as leaders. I appreciate all the comments that I'm getting from the public, and we're going to move on this. This is a priority, and I look forward to working with you all. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before we move on to public comment, I see that Councilmember Spitzley has her hand up, and I think I know why, but I'm going to recognize Councilmember Spitzley.
Thank you, Mr. President. On May 18th, I moved to pass the ordinance for a special land use on 3440 Northeast Street. It's a conditional zoning from F Commercial District to G2 Wholesale District, and that ordinance failed. I would like to bring that back for reconsideration.
So we have before us a motion to reconsider the vote by which the ordinance pertaining to 344 Northeast Street was passed, or I'm sorry, failed in this case. It is actually a special, I'm sorry, it is a rezone, not a special land use.
Rezone, yeah, thank you.
Yep, so we do have that motion before us by Councilmember Spitzley. Is there further discussion before we take a vote on the reconsideration? Seeing no further discussion on the vote on the motion to reconsider, would the clerk please call the roll on the motion to reconsider the ordinance?
Councilmember Betts.
Yes.
Councilmember Dunbar.
Yes.
Councilmember Garza.
Yes.
Councilmember Hussein.
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson.
Yes.
Councilmember Spatafor.
Yes.
Councilmember Spitzley.
Yes.
Councilmember Wood.
Yes.
8 yeas, 0 nays. The ordinance is reconsidered. So we will put that on under the order of ordinances for passage.
Thank you all very much for indulging us in that. So again, we are up to public comment, and this is related to just items on the legislative agenda up to and including the rezone that was just reconsidered. Mr. Clerk, I think we've got an individual whose phone number ends in 4043, phone number ending in 4043. You are now unmuted, person.
And if you would state your name for the record, please, and spell it if you want it correct in the minutes.
David Lambert, last name Lambert, 1023 South Holmes Street. That's Holmes. I'd like to speak a little bit about agenda items C1A and C2A, the declaration of the state of emergency regarding COVID-19, and perhaps a little bit about the compensation provision. So I think it's obvious to everyone that things are not back to normal, and they will not be back to normal for some time. But I also think that a lot of people in this city are acting as if things are back to normal to a much greater extent than other people expect them to. For example, my wife and I were visiting an old friend just the other day, and there was a park right next door. There were kids playing on the playground equipment. As another example, from my front window, I can see a soccer field, and on Sunday afternoon, there was a game that's going on between people who have played there every Sunday for the past several years. so there are some businesses that never shut down. There are some businesses that are going back into business with modifications. I'm also involved in organizations that have completely stopped their voluntary activities. For example, I'm involved with a Boy Scout troop that hasn't met in person since the beginning of March, exactly because they want to be good citizens, but there's only so much that organizations like that can do just by meeting online and talking. So as you direct the city to continue its appropriate response, I would encourage you to not so much add more rules as clarify what people can get back to doing and what is actually helpful. And certainly leave that declaration in place, but perhaps encourage the mayor to clarify that some of the things it doesn't cover and some of the things that people may still do.
And that's time, sir. Thank you very much.
All right.
Right. Then we are to the referral of the public hearing on SLU 3 of 20.
Yeah, that's going to stay here. We're going to vote on that this evening.
Okay. And we're to the resolutions for action by Councilmember Spatafor.
Sure. And I'm going to toss the gavel over to Vice President Hussein and raise my hand.
President Spatafor, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Before us, we have a resolution that would extend the state of emergency that Mayor Shore declared a while back to June 30th. And the reason we're going with June 30th is we have one more council meeting in the month of June on the 22nd. And I think what we've learned through this process is even though the maybe some of the restrictions have been lifted and things like that, the state of emergency must stay in place for us to continue to account for our expenditures related to COVID expenses, so that we may turn them in for any kind of relief dollars or FEMA dollars, those types of things. These are different. Extending the state of emergency is different than extending the stay-home orders, extending the work-from-home orders for city staff. Those issues will be hammered out over the coming weeks. As I know, the administration is working on a return-to-work plan, as is council office. So I don't want folks to think that the state of emergency means we're going to continue doing what we've been doing. In fact, in the committee of the whole, we just re-referred all of our items back to their original committees as we look to sort of let loose council operations back to more normalcy. So this state of emergency will continue through June 30th. We may extend it again, and I fully expect to have that conversation on June 22nd. But right now, we wanted to give the administration time because this current one expires on the 12th, which is before our next council meeting. So I don't think there's much more to be said other than I would move the resolution.
All right. Thank you, President Spatafor. There is a motion on the table for the discussion. And I'm not seeing any. So Clerk Swope, could you please take a roll call vote?
Okay, on adoption of the emergency resolution, Councilmember Batts.
Yes.
Councilmember Dunbar.
Yes.
Councilmember Garza.
Yes.
Councilmember Hussein.
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson.
Yes.
Councilmember Spatafor.
Yes.
Councilmember Spitzley.
Yes.
Councilmember Wood.
Yes.
8 yeas, 0 nays. The resolution is adopted. And we are to the resolution introduced by Councilmembers Wood and Garza.
Councilmember Wood.
Thank you, President Spatafor. If you remember during the budget cycle, as we were passing the budget, we talked about the fact that because of the reduction in revenues coming in both from the state and our city coffers and the things and the dollars that were coming in, that I talked about the idea of us, because of those budgetary restraints, voluntarily reducing our own salaries. And this is something that we did a few years back when we were dealing with furloughed employees. And at the time we passed the budget, we did not have furloughed employees. We now do have those as well. And what this resolution would be is that we would be resolving as a city council, acting as whole, that each council member would voluntarily donate back to the city 10% of their pay, their salary set by the EOCC, either through a direct contribution or payroll deduction. And so you would ask that we come back with a resolution for that, and that is what I've done at this time. And I don't know whether Councilmember Garza would like to add anything to this at this point, but if so, I could turn it over to Councilmember Garza because he's the co-sponsor.
All right, well, thank you, Carol. I just want to state by saying that, we're leaders of this community and we should lead by example. Now, we're looking at some serious budget downfalls. We already have, especially with the COVID-19, and next year we're looking at across the state, I'm hearing $3 billion footfall. And when we talk about, a minuscule amount of 10% of our pay, I think that's what we should do. I would hope all departments would, especially when we're standing by and watching our employee workers furloughed. So the way I look at it is I want to stand in solidarity with our other city employees and reduce my pay by 10%. And hopefully this will go to the general fund and go to critical services that we need that we're short on funds. So thanks to everybody, and I hope everybody will look at it the way I see it. So
with that, Mr. President, I move the resolution. We can't hear you, Peter.
Thank you. Discussion will go to Councilmember Betts.
Thank you. I'm just interested in, we're spending a lot of time on this particular resolution. What percentage of the budget does 10% of all of our salaries come out to be?
Councilmember Betts, it's roughly around 30,000, and in order to, again, speak as a body, we have to do it through a resolution, and that's why we're doing it through this resolution at this time.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman Wood. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you. Just a question for clarification. Is this each person can volunteer, or it's all or nothing, no one?
Go ahead, President.
Sure. The discussions I've had with the city attorney are because our compensation is set by the Lansing Elected Officers Compensation Commission, we cannot reduce our pay. In fact, we can't reduce the budget line item to cover that because it is set by an outside source. So the notion would be that this demonstrates the council's willingness to do this, and then it's incumbent upon each member of council to make the donation or the arrangements through payroll, him or herself.
I guess just to follow up a little more. So it is individually voluntary.
Yes. Is that correct? Is that your understanding, Councilmember Wood? Did I mischaracterize?
Yeah. No, that's my understanding. We cannot compel any council member to give up their salary. I would hope that council members would fulfill, if they're supporting this, that they would fulfill that. But again, it's going to be your own personal decision that you have to live with.
Councilmember Dunbar. Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Jackson, what you said?
For now.
Okay. Councilmember Dunbar.
Thank you. I am doing the math, and maybe I'm not getting it. 10% of our salaries is less than $20,000. What am I missing?
I took the figures that were given to us by the finance department, and 10% of that came to roughly around $30,000. So,
Councilmember, don't forget that I make a little more as president and the vice president makes a little more, so it's not an even distribution of salary.
Yeah, well, I took your salary and I mean, I looked at the rest of us because we all make less because you're special. And yeah, and I came up with, it was like around 20. That being said, when we, so we have to do a resolution in order to allow council members to make the donation, because we couldn't do that individually. I don't.
Yeah. Sorry. Yes, you can, Councilmember Dunbar. This is a demonstration to the public that the council is willing to make that a public demonstration that we are willing to move forward with this. It speaks to our employees. It speaks to the public.
Okay, so just to clarify, from my understanding, with the furlough day, just like at the state, we are signing our employees for unemployment, federal unemployment. So while they're furloughed, they're going to make more money than they did when they were working 5 days. Anybody dispute that?
That is until July 31st. After July 31st, if they are still under furlough, that they won't be. The federal dollars dry up after July 31st, is my understanding.
Okay, so somebody tell me then, what is the intent on how long we're going to furlough?
Mr. Mayor, do you have how long we plan to furlough folks?
Yes, sir. We plan to furlough folks through July 26th, so that way they can get the $600 weekly federal benefit. So the federal, our furlough matches, it's actually the work share, our work share and 4-day work week matches the timeline of the federal funds. And at this point, we do not have intentions to continue that unless the economic, issues go way down, unless the feds extend their additional dollars. It's just too many ifs to even think about right now. So we did 5 Fridays, and it will end July, I believe, 26th.
So thank you for clarifying that. So really, what this resolution does is ask us to give up 10% until July 31st, or for the rest of the year, or because if we're not furloughing past that, this isn't an act of solidarity. I mean, I understand the show, but it's not, I guess. I don't get it.
Councilmember Dunbar, the original resolution when we first discussed this had to do with a reduction in revenues that we were having coming in, and the fact that it would have the impact that it would have on services and other things moving forward. Along with that, since this was discussed during the budget adoption of the budget, we have then had the furlough that has added to that. Again, we do not know, and I don't believe that the mayor's got a magic wand or ball that can tell us that after July 26th that employees, that we might not still have some of those issues out there. We realize that there are a number of unknowns. Again, if you don't want to donate, that's entirely up to you. This was something that when we were doing the budget process, we said that we would need to do it by a resolution. The president asked that I wait until the next council meeting, which is now, to do that. That's what I'm putting forward, and that's where we're at.
I've seen Councilmember, I think Carol, your speaker's on River. There we go. Councilmember Garza, then Betts. Councilmember Garza, Spitzley, then Betts.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, anybody out here, but I mean, I believe it is standing in solidarity, especially with my union brothers and sisters that work through the city of Lansing. I mean, because when they are furloughed, they're not putting into their pension, they're not putting into their retirement, or they're not, helping out their. Am I wrong, Mayor? Or can anybody answer me that when they're on furlough days, they're not contributing into their pension, correct?
Can anyone answer that question? I don't know the answer to that question. Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I'd have to look at the MOU. I'd have to look and see. For some of it, when we did voluntary furlough and when we did 4-day work week, there were different provisions. So let me look. I can get you the answer.
I know that under the voluntary furlough, we were not paying into the pensions. I talked to finance about that. I'm not sure about the 4-day.
Yeah, Shelby might be on. She might remember. I have to go back and look at the MOU.
There she is. Shelby.
And I appear. Yeah, so to answer your question, we have right now, the way that it's set up is that a percent of your pay gets deposited for pension. So if we reduce your pay by 20%, we're reducing what's being contributed by 20%. So it's not a straight dollar amount. It's always based on an earnings. So if we reduce it on one end, it's going to be reduced on the other.
Thank you.
Okay, Council Member Spitzley, then Betts.
Thank you, Mr. President. So the money that the 10% will go back to the general fund. We can't direct it to go into like the HRCS for, some program. It has to go back to the general fund. Is that correct?
Councilmember Spitzley, you can make a donation to the city in any way you want if you do it through the donation mechanism. If you do a payroll deduct, it would probably have to go back into the general fund. Is that,
Okay. And that's
I might have just made that answer up, but
it sounded good.
yeah.
But that's fine. Here's my thought on it. I think that I am supportive. And if you're not supportive, vote no. I don't know why we have to nitpick over this resolution. It is what it is. So
Well, actually, Council Rule 15 requires us to nitpick. So
well, then this is my nitpick. It is what it is. So, I don't, everybody has a vote, like Councilwoman Wood said, you vote your conscience. And if you don't want to do it, don't do it. But I think it's a gesture, and yeah, it's a show. But we're politicians, and if you don't think you do shows, I think you're misleading yourself, right? This is, so I am proud to, vote yes on this, and proud to either write a check or have payroll deduction. But I need payroll deduction because I'll forget to write a check and then, in the city pulse or something. So I need to set up payroll deduction.
Okay, are you done, Councilmember Spitzley?
I am done.
Very good. Council members Dunbar, then Jackson.
Oh, I thought he was before me. What about for those of us who would rather donate that money elsewhere? Because I know that we had talked about that in the past. I don't feel comfortable telling anybody that, dictating to other council members what to do on this one. But for those who want to, if it takes voting for this resolution in order to make it viable to actually implement this for those who want to, I'll support the resolution. But for those of us who want to donate to outside organizations, that's an option as well, correct?
Councilmember Wood, maybe to your resolution, if you want to speak to that. I don't see it in this resolution where the intent of this gesture would be satisfied through external donations.
If you want to donate additional funds to any other group that you want to, that's entirely up to you. This 10% that we're talking about goes back to the city, whether it's designated for a certain department within the city, whether it's designated just into the general fund, you can make that determination. But, again, this is going back to the city as a demonstration with that.
Okay, so we can say what departments we don't want it to go to.
Yes.
Yes.
With your donation, if you make
with your donation.
Okay.
Okay, Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you. Sorry for coming back on this, but speaking of standing in solidarity, I would first, want to stand in solidarity with my council members. And, if not everybody's comfortable with it, I would not want any one person or two or three or four or however many be singled out now or in the future. So I guess I understand that it's, symbolic to some extent and very political. For example, if somebody voted no, it could come up, oh, well, Brian voted no to have his pay reduced. Look at Brian. So it is political, but I am only going to support it with the assurance that it's voluntary for an individual and that there is no repercussions for the people who don't want to do it. And this is going to be the last an ability for someone to donate 10% should they so choose.
Council members Hussein and Spitzley.
Well, I'm certainly not going to be the only one to not speak on this. So yeah, I want to first thank Councilwoman Wood and Councilmember Garza for bringing this forward. This follows really what a number of leaders across really the region are doing. We know that Governor Whitmer on April 20th, as an example, announced a 10% pay cut for herself, a 5% pay cut for her senior level staff. We have other governors from the Midwest that are not only enacting 10% pay cuts for themselves, but for all of their cabinet members as well as their senior level staff. And then that starts to trickle down to counties throughout the region, or I should say throughout really the Midwest, to local municipalities. And I think what it is it's a recognition that families and individuals are having to tighten their belt, and it is not just right now. We have individuals that are, economists on this council, and we know what the long-term projection is. This is not going to just impact us in the short term. As a public school employee, to be candid, it is very, very scary, the conversations that we are having right now with regards to what next year looks like, what future negotiation cycles look like, what we could expect for pay freezes, which essentially are pay reductions, layoffs, and individuals all across our community are having the same types of conversations with regards to their jobs. And the last thing, Peter, Councilman Spatafor, if I may, I do candidly worry about our workers and the critical services that we need to provide. And so I truly think it is a show of solidarity. I don't think the dollar amount is necessarily insignificant, even if it helps, save one seasonal job. Then I think it's money well spent. And Councilwoman Dunbar, I really appreciate this idea of giving to charitable organizations. I know that I have given to charitable organizations through this period of time. I will continue to do that. We suspended the Lansing Harmony celebration this year because we wanted folks that typically give to events like ours to be able to give to this effort. So certainly we support that, we encourage that, but I think as city council members, we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to our taxpayers. We have a responsibility to our general fund. We have a responsibility to our employees. So again, show of solidarity, but I don't think the dollar amount is insignificant. But again, I really do appreciate Councilman Wood and Councilmember Garza for bringing this forward, and I will be supported. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no other, oh wait, did I miss someone? No, seeing no other hands, I would like to have the clerk please call the roll on the resolution before us as moved by Councilmember Wood.
Okay, Councilmember Betts.
Yes.
Councilmember Dunbar. Councilmember Garza.
Absolutely.
Councilmember Hussein.
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson.
Yes.
Councilmember Spatafor.
Da.
Councilmember Spitzley.
Yes, but remember, somebody's going to have to fix this so it comes out of my check. If I have to do this by memory, it's going to be a problem. Okay.
That was a yes, Mr. Clerk.
Yes. Councilmember Wood.
Yes, and I want to thank all my other council members for supporting this resolution.
8 yeas. The
Thank you.
resolution is adopted.
Shelby, you take Venmo, right?
We
What
are
the heck
to
is
the committee of the whole.
Talking about what's Venmo? Seriously.
Moving on.
We're to the committee of the whole for the Stop Violence Against Women grants.
Sure, Councilmember Vice President Hussein.
Sure. So this is a resolution for a grant acceptance for the Stop Violence Against Women grant for the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. The LPD did submit an application to the state's Department of Health and Human Services for this grant. The LPD was informed, I believe the date they gave us was March 15th, that it had been selected to receive funding of up to $71,011. There is a 25% local match of $23,670 in the dollars. Or I should say, well, the total sum with both of those pots included is $94,681. Those dollars are intended to be used to fund the salary and fringe benefits of one detective dedicated to investigating, or I should say investigations related to domestic violence and stalking. We were given a little bit of additional information I should say, as part of Committee of the Whole. So more specifically, as part of the grant process, the Ingham County Prosecutor's Office and Violent Encounters and LPD will actually be partnering to address the most dangerous and frequent domestic violence offenders through the introduction of tiered classification, allowing for specific strategies in prosecution, treatment of offenders, and assignments to the 54A District Domestic Violence Court, along with survivor efforts through both EVE and the city's CARE program. The hope is that the partnership will help to reduce recidivism. We had Mr. Joe McClure as part of our Committee of the Whole process. We want to thank him. The application was excellently done, and there was quite a bit of data that really spoke to an uptick in simple assault, felonious assault, criminal sexual conduct, all related to domestic violence. And so we know the need is there. We certainly appreciate the Lansing Police Department submitting this application on behalf of survivors and things of that nature. So with that being said, I would move the resolution for grant acceptance.
Thank you, Vice President Hussein. And before we move on, I just want everyone to know that Robert Bacchus is here from LPD to answer some of our questions. And I did get a little static from members about why this was so late in the game. And it was originally one of the pre-COVID issues that got referred to Ways and Means just before we went out on extended leave, and it kind of got lost in the couch cushions, if you will. So when we flipped them over to vacuum, we found out we had to clean them out as the money in this fiscal year had already been expended, expecting those grants to come through. So we do have that before us to accept and receive those grant dollars. I will open this up to questions and conversation now, since the motion is properly before us. For council members. Councilmember Betts and Dunbar.
I'm actually going to let Councilmember Dunbar go first, if that's all right.
Councilmember Dunbar.
Okay, thank you. I have some questions about, I know we all voted this out of Committee of the Whole to the floor to have the discussion, but maybe Mr. Bacchus, Officer Bacchus can help with this, but to what extent was there a needs assessment done by EVE or by other organizations to say that funding that we got for domestic violence would be best spent on a detective versus anything else that we could have used that grant for?
Officer Bacchus, are you available for comment?
Yes, are you able to hear me?
Yes, we are.
So this is separate from the Violence Against Women Act. This particular grant, the STOP grant, has three portions. One is with the 54A probation, one is for the Ingham County Prosecutor's Office, and the other is for the police department. So this is separate from them. We are partnered with them, and it does work in conjunction with the Violence Against Women Act, just to step up our investigation and our services for domestic violence related and intimate partner domestic violence efforts.
Okay. So I want to follow up on that a little bit, because I did some research in between meetings talking with folks that do work with domestic violence in the community, agencies who deal with victims, and I was shared with a lot of different resources, including from the Firecracker Foundation, about a direction that if you involve victims in the actual discussion about what is best needed for resources for victims of domestic violence, the number one thing is not a detective. And I know that might seem counterintuitive, but involving police in domestic issues can actually make it more dangerous for women who are victims, and there's a lot of research to that effect, that it's probably more necessary to have social workers, particularly social workers of color, people from the trans community, because there's a whole lot of victimization in the LGBTQ and trans community that goes without anybody servicing them that looks like them or that advocates for them, and there's a lot of shortage for services. And so I'm going to recommend, if I may, that could we table this? I mean, is this money being spent right now? Is somebody actually doing this? Did the grant? Is it a moot point to discuss at this point, or could we actually look at alternative ways to spend this funding that actually address the needs that are brought up by victims, as opposed to us in the city?
So I'm going to, instead of make up an answer for you, Councilmember Dunbar, I'm going to turn it over to President Wood. Councilmember Wood, who chairs the committee.
Thank you, President Spatafor. In the information that we received, this salary and fringe benefits pays a detective through September 30th, 2020, which means that we've expended the majority of the funds already, which does happen from time to time, that by the time we get information from finance to council, that period has been taken care of. The grant cycle for this was January 1st, January 30th, 2019 through September 30th. So the majority of these funds have already been expended for that salary.
Okay. I would like to suggest that moving forward, if we're as a city going to apply for funds on behalf of a group like this, that particularly domestic violence victims, that we involve them in the actual grant writing process to make sure that what we are asking for is the proper agreed upon by them response to help them in the community. I understand, I've been on here long enough to know that we occasionally get grants that were just, it's a perfunctory vote that the money is already spent. But in this one in particular, I'm sad, because I think that sometimes we're not involving the folks who are the actual victims in this case in the decision making. And I was hopeful that when he's mentioned Eve was involved, but it's really not, they weren't involved in the grant writing process for this. And I'm particularly, after having talked with advocates about the effect that involving police can have, and the alternatives that are available for addressing this situation outside of the police, there are other options and better ways to spend this money.
Councilmember Shu, I'll track down for you from finance or the police department. There is an MOU that Eve wrote along with the application that was included in our packet. It wasn't included in our packet, but it was linked in a document that was included in our packet. And you can't get to it in the packet because it was just an image of the link, but we will track that down for you, make sure that you have that from Eve as well.
And Councilmember Dunbar, just to follow up, if you remember, there was a period of time that any grants submitted had to first go through council, so that those questions were asked before the grant was submitted. Then there was a determination that the mayor did not need permission from council to submit for a grant. They only needed it for the acceptance. And so, sometimes you end up with those disconnects when we are not part of the beginning process. And we can recommend to the administration that as they look at these grants in the future, that the people that would benefit from them are discussed. But, there has been a change over the years.
Okay.
And Councilmember Dunbar, I heard you say the word table, but I didn't hear a motion. So are we set to move on to Councilmember Betts?
Well, I'll let Councilmember Betts say his piece and then I'll consider it. But at this point, the money is being spent almost whether we accept it or not. So
Councilmember Betts.
I do have to say that this is highly fiscally irresponsible of us to be spending money that this council hasn't accepted. And I would expect the mayor's department to make us aware of these grants and have us accept these grants before we start spending the money. Because now we're all at a point that where we're saying, if we don't accept this grant, well, what happens? And this is honestly coming at a time, an active time, and a very sensitive time when there are people in our community calling on divestment in the police department. And this is just another example of us spending money on a detective that we don't know if there's efficacy behind this. We don't know. We don't have any evidence put forward by the police department that this detective has done anything positively as compared to some other results. So I am going to make a motion that we table this until the 22nd, that we postpone this vote until the 22nd so that we can have some time to talk to survivor groups, to talk with the police department, and to talk to the community specifically who's very sensitive about this issue right now to make sure that we're making the correct decision on council. So again, I make that motion to postpone until the 22nd on this vote.
The motion before us is to postpone the grant acceptance resolution before us until the 22nd. Is there discussion on the motion to postpone, or are we prepared to vote on that motion to postpone? Councilmember Hussein.
I guess just a question. I mean, there's no real harm necessarily in waiting until the 22nd since the money's it's being spent now anyway, correct?
Correct. And I don't know the details as to when this actually has to be accepted, but it presumably in this fiscal year, which ends.
And I would imagine if we don't accept it, that money would come out of the police budget as opposed to pay for, or how would this work if we don't accept it?
Yeah, so as far as I understand it, because I track down finance in between the meetings, and it is being expended under general fund dollars, so it would be a negative draw on the fund balance.
Okay.
All right, so the motion before us, Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Okay, on the postponement of the resolution, Councilmember Betts.
Yes.
Councilmember Dunbar.
yes.
Councilmember Garza.
Yes.
Councilmember Hussein.
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson.
Yes.
Councilmember Spatafor.
Yeah.
Councilmember Spitzley.
She said
Yes. I said yes.
Okay, Councilmember Wood.
I will agree to the postponement, but I do want to put a caveat in here that again, this money is being spent, and it will come out of something. So I just want us to remember that. Thank you.
I'll send my back to this program.
The motion is adopted, so that is postponed until the next meeting. So we're to the Public Art for Communities Grants resolution.
All right, this one has not been expended yet, but is before us. Councilmember Hussein.
All right, so the resolution before us is for a grant acceptance of the Public Art for Communities grant from the PNC Foundation's Public Art for Communities and Lansing Economic Area Partnership. It was clarified as part of the committee of the whole that it's Lansing Area Partnership Regional. So understanding again the importance of public art in our community and our public spaces, the Lansing Economic Development Corporation applied for this particular grant on behalf of the city of Lansing for the 2020 grant period. Ultimately, the LADC was successful. And we did award the city a $10,000 Public Art for Communities grant, which is to be used for installation of art in Reuter Park. The Lansing Brownfield Redevelopment, the Lansing Brownfield Redevelopment Authority also approved I believe it was a match of up to $5,000 from its local Brownfield Revolving Fund to essentially reimburse the city for Brownfield eligible activities related to the project. The city of Lansing, and this is outlined in the resolution, the city of Lansing will provide in-kind services pertaining to installation. And it was also clarified during committee of the whole that in perpetuity we will be responsible for the maintenance of this art piece, and that will be a responsibility of the Parks and Recreation Department. This is really part of a kind of a comprehensive effort to rejuvenate Ruder Park. And so just very quickly, there is going to be, or at least planned, I should say some of this has actually already happened and some of this is planned for, the installation of a new playground, increased park programming, electric service and other amenities to better accommodate community services to the homeless, and the fundraising effort to, fully rehab and rejuvenate really this iconic fountain that is part of that park. So again, it's part of a bigger effort, but this is, an important part of that overall kind of comprehensive effort. So with all of that said, I would move the resolution to support the grant acceptance.
Very good. The amendment is before, the resolution is properly before us. Is there any discussion from council members? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Betts.
Yes.
Councilmember Dunbar.
Yes.
Councilmember Garza.
Yes.
Hussein.
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson.
Yes.
Councilmember Spatafor.
Yes.
Councilmember Spitzley.
Yes.
Councilmember Wood.
Yes.
8 yeas, 0 nays, the resolution is adopted, which takes us to the SLU 3 2020 LCC ramp.
Councilmember Spitzley.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. So we had a public meeting this evening on the special land use 3-2020. We also had, which is the parking deck on 610 North Capitol. It's the LCC Gannon parking deck. We also had a presentation. I'm sorry, I just put the papers in front of the camera. We also had a presentation by the folks of Lansing Community College. The planning board had a public hearing on this issue on March 3rd, 2020. Again, at which several people representing LCC spoke about it. The issue, because of public comment, because of working with council, the original plan again was to only have the Gannon building for 3 levels, and then do another parking structure on Capitol. Now the plan is to redevelop the Gannon parking structure to 5 levels and not do a parking structure on Capitol. Again, we had a public comment this evening on this issue, and there was no public comment. And with that, I move the resolution.
Thank you, Councilmember Spitzley. We have before us the resolution approving the SLU. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
And the SLU 3, Councilmember Betts.
Yes.
Councilmember Dunbar.
Yes.
Councilmember Garza.
Yes.
Councilmember Hussein.
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson.
Yes.
Councilmember Spatafor.
Yes.
Councilmember Spitzley.
Yes.
Councilmember Wood.
Yes.
8 yeas, 0 nays, the resolution is adopted. And we are to ordinances for introduction by the Committee of the Whole.
Before we do that, Mr. Clerk, we have one more ordinance, I think, before us.
That's for passage.
Oh, I'm sorry, my bad.
But that's okay. That gave me a moment to stall because I don't have that in front of me. Okay, so we have introduction readopting the codified ordinances of the City of Lansing.
Yes, so Council Member Hussein.
Sure. So during the committee of the whole process, you recounted a little bit of a painful history here on City Council. Our charter requires us to recodify our ordinances every 10 years, and we successfully did that in 2007. And then in 2017, unfortunately, an oversight resulted in us not doing that. An emergency order later, and then a more temporary action of this council later, we successfully recodified and readopted I think it was in early 2018. At that time, we decided that we would take this up annually to ensure that, kind of this debacle of 2017, to ensure that we didn't repeat history. So this ordinance would include all ordinances approved through December, I think it's 31st, 2019, would expire officially December 31st of 2029. And what we are doing today is establishing a public hearing for Monday, July 13th at 7 p.m. So with that said, I would move the resolution.
Very good. It's been moved by Councilmember Hussein. Mr. Clerk.
Okay, on the resolution setting the public hearing, Councilmember Betts,
Yes.
Councilmember Dunbar,
Yes.
Councilmember Garza,
Yes.
Councilmember Hussein,
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson,
Yes.
Councilmember Spatafor,
Yes.
Councilmember Spitzley,
Yes.
Councilmember Wood.
Yes.
8 yeas, 0 nays. The resolution setting the public hearing is adopted. And we are to ordinances for passage. We have the ordinance that failed by a vote of 4-3 at the previous council meeting. And it is on the order of immediate passage. It is for the rezoning of the property on Northeast.
Okay. Do you need to read it, or shall I just call for the motion?
I believe it was already read at the previous meeting, so it's
very good. Councilmember Spitzley, would you like to make the motion?
Oh, I'm sorry. I move to pass the ordinance for the special land use zoning special land use change for the property on 3440 Northeast Street. Sorry.
To clarify, Councilmember Spitzley made a motion approving the rezone for 34.
Oh my gosh, yes, the rezone. I'm sorry, I've said that twice.
You just want to hand out those SOUs like crazy.
I do, like candy. All right, go ahead.
Any further discussion on this? We've had multiple rounds on this one, so I'll just ask the clerk to call the roll then.
Okay, on the ordinance, Councilmember Betts.
Yes.
Councilmember Dunbar.
Yes.
Councilmember Garza.
No.
Councilmember Hussein.
No.
Councilmember Jackson.
Yes.
Councilmember Spatafor.
Yes.
Councilmember Spitzley.
Yes.
Councilmember Wood.
No.
5 yeas, 3 nays. The ordinance is adopted.
Thank you. And correct me if I'm wrong, but there is no immediate effect on a zoning ordinance, correct?
That is correct.
All right, then we will move on.
Okay, we're to speaker registration for public comment on city government related matters. So that is any topic that folks wish to talk about. And we'll give you until we are done doing the referrals to raise your hands. And we will have someone making a list of raised hands. And in the meantime, we are to reports of officers, boards, and commissions.
All right. Let's see here. We need a motion from Vice President Hussein.
President Spatafor, I move that all items be considered as being read in full and proper referrals be made by you, President Spatafor.
Motion before us is on the referrals. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Betts.
Yes.
Councilmember Dunbar.
Yes.
Councilmember Garza.
Yes.
Councilmember Hussein.
Yes.
Councilmember Jackson.
Yes.
Councilmember Spatafor.
Yes.
Councilmember Spitzley.
Yes.
Councilmember Wood.
Yes.
8 yeas, 0 nays. The motion is adopted. We have letters from the city clerk regarding minutes of boards, commissions, and authorities.
Placed on file.
Board of Water and Light budget for the fiscal year ending 2021 and the capital forecast.
Committee of the whole.
And rules of administrative procedure for the Board of Fire Commissioners.
Public safety.
We have letters from the mayor regarding the budget for fiscal year 2019 to 2020. Budget.
Yeah, this is going to be committee of the whole.
Citizens participation plan for the community development block grants, home and emergency solution grants programs.
Committee of the whole.
and the reappointments of numerous members of various boards and commissions.
Also committee of the whole.
An appointment of Ronald Wilson to the Board of Public Service.
Public service.
Board of Water and Light Return on Equity Agreement.
Committee of the whole.
And a grant acceptance, Michigan Department of Treasury.
Mr. Mayor, are you on? Do you know, is this grant acceptance for the Department of Treasury financially distressed cities, villages, and townships, is that emergency funding that we need appropriated quickly, or can that go to the Ways and Means Committee? Jake, I just saw you too. Maybe Jake wants to answer that. Sorry for the delay, folks. I just want to make sure we don't end up having to discharge this. Jake?
Yeah. Probably not immediate action required, although.
Got it. Okay, we'll put it on Ways and Means then. Thank you.
Okay, so we are now to remarks by council members.
Any Councilmember Garza?
All right. Thank you, Council President. I just wanted to take the time to, address something to the mayor real quick. I had a conversation with our Public Services Director, Andy Kilpatrick, over the weekend. And as you know, we had a late start to picking up our yard bags, yard waste. And, I proposed to him, he seemed receptive. The 60% of our tax base is in South Lansing, and we're always the last ones to get our yard waste bags picked up. And I proposed to him, why don't we starting next spring, start with the second and third ward and have those bags picked up for the season to be started with first. And, that would provide us with approximately 10 months of messaging to get it out, to flip the maps so that Southside isn't constantly last. I mean, as you know, most people do their yard, cleanup on the weekends, and time and year after year, our bags sit out here in front, during this rain, during the storms, and end up all over the street because the bags are deteriorating. Is there any way that we can move forward and hopefully, you don't have to answer me now, Mayor. I don't mean to be putting you on the spot, but this is something that's near and dear and to every resident in South Lansing. And I think if we talk about, equality through the city, I don't see a problem with spreading the love to the south side and having our yard bags picked up starting on Mondays next year.
Okay, Councilmember Spitzley.
Thank you. I'm going to echo what Jeremy said, particularly since I got a call this morning from a resident in Colonial Village, and they asked me to specifically mention it during council that the yard waste bags are still sitting out, and they were, sitting out from last week. They're still sitting there. It's rained. It's going to storm tomorrow night, and it's going to storm all day Wednesday. To the extent that there's an opportunity for, I realize we're backed up, but I told them that I would mention it. And so I'm mentioning it to you that, over here on the south end, in the Colonial Village area, in my neighborhood where I am, these bags have been here. They were supposed to be picked up on Wednesday, and they've been here all weekend. And so I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Thank you.
Okay, I do believe, Councilmember Betts.
Could you just remind people how to raise their hands?
Oh yeah, sorry. While we're going around here, folks wishing to speak for public comment, we'll get to Councilmember Hussein in just a moment. On a Mac computer, it is Option Y. On a Windows machine, it's Alt Y. Participation on the phone is *9. If you're using a device that I didn't list, like a tablet, you find the participants screen, click on participants, and there's a raise hand function there. We'll move on to Councilmember Hussein.
Yeah, just very quick. I don't want to belabor the subject. I appreciate Councilman Garza as well as Councilwoman Spitzley bringing up the issues of yard waste. And I got contacted by that same resident in Colonial Village. But, to be honest with you, hundreds more. And I really want to say thank you to Andrew Kilpatrick, who has been incredibly responsive. As a matter of fact, Councilmember Garza and myself, spent about an hour on a conference call with him Friday. just talking about, the issues that South Lansing faces with regard, and it's not just yard waste. Because we pick up trash, we pick up recycling, we pick up yard waste on the same day. During the wintertime, we're also impacted with regards to snow plowing. And if folks don't know what we do, sorry about that. What we do is we actually go out, let's say it snows Sunday night. Then what we're going to do is we're going to actually clear Monday's trash routes so that those guys can get out there and pick up the refuse. The problem with that is that when we start out in North Lansing on Monday and Tuesday, that means if it snows Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, and even Monday night, then we're starting our snow routes in North Lansing because we're on a 4-day cycle. So it's, we get the short end of the stick all the time. So we talked a lot about, what kind of messaging and coordination it would take, but could we potentially, annually kind of flip-flop, or are there some other solutions? With regards to yard waste, we talked a lot about, neighborhood pickup sites, supplemental to, not in place of, where you actually have somebody out, maybe out on a Saturday with a truck, which would allow for drop off. And again, that would be supplemental to, but not in place of. So I certainly hope that the administration continues to have these really important conversations, and that we are sensitive to the fact that South Lansing, again, where our densest populations exist, that we seem to get the short end of the stick, and it's been kind of a historic problem. Thank you.
I think that concludes council member comments. Mr. Clerk, before we move on, I just want to remind folks, I will put up a 3-minute timer, and we've been consistent. We'll stop comment at 3 minutes to allow time for folks to comment. The other thing I will note, it is typically council's practice that we do not respond after public comment, and that is for anybody on public comment. We generally do not respond. So please do not take it as a sign of disrespect. If your comment is made and there is no response coming from council members, it is an opportunity for the public to provide input, and we will move into public comment now. Mr. Clerk, I'll let you take it away.
Okay, our first speaker says Michael Lynn Jr., but I'm going to guess that it's Erica Lynn again. You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Unmuted.
You have 3 minutes.
Hello, you there?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. So, couple things here. I heard a lot of talked about today. I kind of came in a little late, but I wanted to mention a couple names here, and I wanted to find out public comment to the mayor what we're doing with these here. We had a show last night where we talked a lot about some people that need to be made whole. And a lot of the conversation with our demands, or with Black Lives Matter demands, revolve around defunding police. I think it's important that we add to that, making some of these people that were wronged in this mayor's office right. So I want to name some of those names off here so everybody can hear them. Let's see here. We're going to get Joan Jackson Johnson. We want to get her back on the squad. I think that she was an amazing person in what she did for this city. I think she was wrongfully terminated. I think that Andy Shore needs to make her name whole again. Chief Teller Farrell, although he may not want to come back, you need to make his name whole again. Mary Riley, who was fired, you need to make her name whole again. I had a chance to deal with her when I was going through my situations with the city. And before she was taken out of here, we were on a good path when we were dealing with that. And then the new administration came in and just bulldogged me. Bob Johnson, had a chance to speak with him and hear how his situation went. I didn't hear too much negativity about what came out of the mayor's office with that. But Natasha Atkinson, who's at home now with 4 children with no job during the pandemic, you need to make her whole. Martell Armstrong, fired wrongfully and then shamed. Dave Odom, who's currently working and being marginalized and dealing with the same issues after making a racial discrimination complaint, being promoted by you, Andy Shore, and brought back to work to deal with the same issues he went through. Bruce Odom retired shamefully because he had to move out of there because of the bad environment he was dealing with. from the Lansing Fire Department. Colin Boyce, who we spoke with on America 20 to Life last night, one of the highest respected communications information officers in the country. You threw him out of here on his knees. Juwan Randall, still currently at Lansing Fire Department's maintenance division, who is actually dealing with the same marginalization. You need to make these people whole, man. And before you do that, after you do that, I stand 10 toes down with Black Lives Matter and ask you for your resignation. And we'll deal with the rest of the demands with the next mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Becky McKendry. You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Thank you, Council. My name is Becky McKendry. I'm a 12-year resident of Lansing's First Ward. Having watched Andy Shore's abysmal behavior during the call to action hosted by Black Lives Matter Lansing last week, I would like to also add my voice to the growing chorus of those who are rightfully calling for the mayor to step down. The mayor showed unbelievable disrespect towards BLM Lansing leaders and Lansing's Black community when he arrived at the meeting entirely unprepared and unwilling to listen, emerging only from his silence to display a textbook performance of white fragility and defensiveness. What Andy Shore showed on June 3rd was a dangerous combination of many things: a lack of competency, a lack of empathy, a lack of accountability, a lack of leadership, a lack of knowledge of what's going on in the very city that he purports to lead. Perhaps most upsettingly, he continues to display a lack of genuine interest in listening to the city's Black leaders and residents, which alone should be grounds for dismissal. The mayor's subsequent promise to defund the police budget by $100,000, which is an absurd 0.2% of the police budget, is nothing but a slap in the face to those calling for legitimate defunding of the police department and reinvestment of those dollars into the community. Mayor Shore cannot even be truthful about where that number comes from. Tonight at this very council meeting, Mayor Shore told us that he personally looked through the budget and found that $100,000. However, a day ago, when asked by a reporter where that figure of $100,000 came from, Mayor Shore said, and I quote, "They asked me for a number, so I threw one out." Which is it, Mayor Shore? Did you pore over the budget thoughtfully, or did you grab that number out of the sky? No matter where that number came from, while his Black constituents are saying they are suffering, being profiled, being assaulted, and dying at the hands of police, Andy Shore seems to think he can placate them by pulling numbers out of thin air. Add to this the very recent incredible accounts that Mayor Shore fostered a racially hostile work environment in his office, culminating in the highly questionable firing of a talented Black staff member, Natasha Atkinson, with no explanation. Black lives matter, but that is the absolute minimum. Black lives deserve. They deserve safety and love, liberty and prosperity, peace and power. Andy Shore does not understand that. Andy Shore cannot deliver this reality to Lansing, and therefore Andy Shore must go. Thank you.
And thank you. Next, we have Marshall Clabeau. You can go ahead and unmute yourself, sir.
All right, am I coming in? All right, I heard myself on my roommate's phone. So for your comment time this evening, I would like to reiterate Becky's points in the stance of Black Lives Matter's leadership time and time again. They show the city what leadership is. Racism cannot be tolerated, silence cannot be tolerated, and misinformation cannot be tolerated. I really want to spend my time, the remaining 2 minutes, talking, uplifting Kathy's points. We had, I don't know if she's a Lansing resident, but we had a resident of Michigan drive her car into a crowd of people. This car was subsequently set on fire. The press, the mayor, everyone involved in the publication of these events, which ultimately ended with tear gas. I'm terrified. No American citizen deserves to be tear gassed. Black, white, child. I saw a 6-year-old child being tear gassed. That's horrifying. Absolutely horrifying. The mayor's office has put out some story that doesn't align with facts. There's video, Kathy. I've seen it. It's not hard to find. Reach out to me if you want it. That shows a lady trying to hit people. Lansing State Journal needs to be held accountable for their misrepresentation of the story. To this day, we haven't even talked about tear gas being spent on our citizens. This is where it comes down to Chief Green or Mayor Shore. Someone needs to be held responsible for this decision. They can't deflect it off each other. Someone needs to stand up and say who's responsible for tear gassing their citizens after a protest of solidarity with a nationwide uprising. This is a time for Lansing to lead. We have the courage. I've heard every single council member tonight mention how it's time for action. It's past time for action. Action should have been done years ago. But we have a national and international uprising calling for elected leaders to stand up and to fight for Black and brown citizens. The time is now to defund the police. This isn't going to happen in a year. We're not going to wipe all the police off the streets in 2 years. But we need to be set on a path for police defunding. $43 million. Let's start by throwing it in our schools. I've spent time in our schools. I urge every single elected representative to spend a week a month in the schools. That's my call on you. Just spend a week. See what the teachers are going through. See the conditions that the kids are trying to learn in. It's time for action, and now's the time for our leaders to lead. So step up or step aside. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Ross Fisher. Go ahead and unmute yourself, and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Ross Fisher. I live at 909.5 Seymour. Tonight, I am urging the council to take bold actions to address police brutality and to radically rethink our criminal justice system here in Lansing. We're seeing people across the country, led by the Black community and groups like Black Lives Matter, stand up and demand radical changes to policing. For too long, we have heard the talk of reform, such as making training and equipment adjustments as the main solution to the problem of police violence. But what we really need is change that strikes at the heart of the problem. And that problem is that we have systematically disinvested in our working class and Black and brown communities and have been using police as a tool of force to solve social problems. This approach has been an abysmal failure because it fails to solve the root causes of poverty and has actively harmed many people. We have to make major investments in our public services in areas like education, healthcare, and transportation that will provide real relief to Black and brown communities and will improve people's lives, reducing the need for police intervention. In the last 3 years, we've increased the police budget at double the rate of public services while cutting our human services and parks budgets. Instead of endlessly growing our police force, we need to decrease police funding and increase funding for programs that improve people's lives. If we do this, we can help people out and reduce the need for police interventions. This has to be an effort at all levels of government. We can start right here in Lansing. I've heard today of plans to reinvest $100,000 of the police budget. As was said, that's only 0.2% of 1% of our police budget. That's pathetic. We have to go much further. We don't have to make a choice between sensible reforms like de-escalation training and banning chokeholds and shifting money from police to other public programs that reduce the need for them in the first place. We can do both of those things. Cities across the country are looking at bold actions on this front, and Lansing needs to join the rest of the country in taking action. I encourage all council members to listen to those fighting for change, take a stand, and support investing in our communities to reduce police violence. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Carly Gerhart. You can go ahead and unmute yourself, and you have 3 minutes.
Sorry, one sec. My video. Hello. My name is Carly Gerhart. I've lived in Lansing since the early 2000s. I'm a homeowner on the east side and a medical student at Michigan State University. I care really deeply about this community. We are all actively witnessing a powerful nationwide movement calling for racial justice, a movement that is born out of pain and despair as we remember George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and many many other Black individuals who have been murdered by police. Police who almost exclusively face zero consequences for their actions. Right now, our Black community is in need. I watched Mayor Shore's participation in the conversation with Lansing's Black Lives Matter chapter, and I am so disappointed. He was unable to connect and communicate with leaders of our Black community in a meaningful and sincere way to work towards change we desperately need. I do not believe he is capable of bringing meaningful change in a way that prioritizes our Black community. I want to express my full support and solidarity for our Lansing chapter of Black Lives Matter and their demands for Mayor Shore to resign, along with their demands for defunding from our police and investing those funds into sustainable social change that lifts up the Black and Brown community members of Lansing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Samantha Vave. Samantha.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Clerk Swope. Thank you, Council. First, I would like to thank Kathy for taking the time to comment on the irony of the fact that amongst all this, we are talking about giving money for another detective when that is really not what the women suffering from domestic violence are asking for. So I thank you for acknowledging that and for being the only council member to acknowledge the tear gas. I think that's incredibly important that this happened in our streets. It happened steps from where you would have your meetings if it weren't for COVID. And it's unacceptable. You know, you are leadership, and I'm hearing a lot of hollow statements instead of ideas, instead of calling for action. We don't really need your prayers or your conversations or your stories about wanting change. We need you to talk about what's happening in our city right now and make real concrete change. We appreciate that Councilmember Jackson came up with an idea. I really like the idea, but if you look at the data throughout the nation, you'll see that complaints that are filed law enforcement rarely result in real discipline. There's a lot of protection that goes on through the police unions. I do love the idea of handing out these cards, but I just wonder if they would really be effective. The thing that strikes me most about this meeting as a whole was listening to the people from the health department speaking about the inequity we are seeing in how COVID is affecting our community. And one of the women flat out said, you know, these people of color are impoverished and therefore they have to go to work. We have a systemic racism that has not only resulted in horrid police brutality, but it's creating so much risk that people are getting sick because of the inequity and the injustice that has happened throughout our nation. So I would like to echo the sentiments of the people that are calling for a defunding of the police department. Those funds could be better spent in mental health services, working with the homeless population, in fixing our schools so we stop the school to prison pipeline. Our country doesn't need to be like this, and our city does not need to be like this. We could be leaders. You all could be the leaders that change, that set the example for the rest of the community, for the rest of the country, and the rest of the world. And I hope you really feel motivated to do something concrete now.
Thank you. Next, we have Angelo, and if you do want your full name to appear in the minutes, please make sure you give us your full name and the spelling if you think we need it. But Angelo.
Yeah, sure. My full name is Angelo Moreno. That's Moreno. I'm a relatively new Lansing resident. I'm a area public librarian, and I would be very proud of the city if we were to make the decision that the Minneapolis municipality just did to defund the police. You know, as a public librarian, I know from experience the good that can happen when a municipality makes a moral and political commitment to spend resources to help people, not to hurt people, to provide the services that people want and need. And so now is the time to defund the police.
Thank you. Next is Connor M. And same thing, if you want your name to appear in the minutes, please provide your full name.
Hi, my name is Connor Meston, M-E-S-T-O-N. I live in the Genesee neighborhood of Lansing. Specifically, I come to council today to also show support for Black Lives Matter Lansing's demands of the city. And I also wish to speak a little bit about the situation that we have in our nation right now regarding policing. And specifically, I'd like to point to the fact that while I noticed that a number of our council members have uplifted our police force today here in Lansing, and Lansing has been somewhat progressive in the way that it's approached the practice of policing. I wish to say that we have an ongoing issue in this country, unfortunately, with white supremacy. And so I'm coming here to say that just in the past handful of years, we've had reports from our own country's FBI saying that white supremacists are specifically targeting police forces as areas where they can work and do their injustice towards communities of color because they fall currently under qualified immunity, which makes it very hard to prosecute a police officer in the court of law. And so the Lansing Police Department is not immune from this kind of insurgency of arguably white terrorism by white supremacists in this country that are hell-bent on hurting communities of color. And so I call on the council to be more creative about what it means to dismantle the institution of policing that currently exists in this society of our city, and really consider what the alternatives are. Some have called for social workers. I personally wonder if there's a way that we can seriously disarm the police and think about other ways to conduct policing where we don't lead with force, we lead with de-escalation. And if there is a need for force, then that is the very secondary or tertiary or the last option that is led into a confrontation with somebody who may or may not be a criminal. And so I hope that the council will take this into consideration and consider creative ways of addressing policing and public safety in our community and defund the police. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I did announce earlier that we would stop taking more names once we were done with the referrals. And I know some additional people have signed up. We are going to allow that, but we are going to close it after the next speaker. So if you want to raise your hand, do it while Brian Doyle is speaking, or we will be cutting it off if you haven't signed up by then. So with that, Mr. Doyle.
Thank you. My name is Brian Doyle. I'm at 401 South Washington Square. During the police riot that happened here this last weekend, because I'm here on Washington Square, when those weapons of war were deployed against Lansing citizens, my apartment was temporarily filled with that gas as well. It's not a great position to be in. Black Lives Matter here in Lansing. I need the council and every member of the Lansing government to be brave in these times and to step up to the moment that we find ourselves in as a nation. You are in charge in this city. The police are not in charge. You are. The decisions that are made on these streets are done in your name and they're done in our name. That is not what we want done on our streets. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we have Emily, and again, state your full name for it to appear in the record.
Hi, my name is Emily Walkowski, Walkowski. I'm sure many of you remember me from coming around while we were working on our cannabis ordinances. And Andy Shore, I sure hope that you remember the time I told you that you are absolutely vile and disgusting and should be deeply, deeply ashamed of yourself. That statement still stands today. You personally made the decision to release tear gas on your constituents. I want you to look at my background right now. It's a picture that I took last Sunday of the street leading up to our Capitol filled with tear gas. That was the decision that you made. That was a decision that you made to use weapons of war on your constituents after somebody tried to murder them with their car. There was no windows broken until police threw tear gas at us. There was no quote unquote violence, quote unquote rioting from protesters until the police unleashed unwarranted and merciless violence upon its citizens that we paid for. And Andy, I implore you to very quickly release the amount of money that you spent on poisoning your citizens. I think that at this point, it's positively clear that we as a city have absolutely no choice but to defund our police. It is what the Black community is calling on in Lansing. It is what the Black community across the country is calling upon. Minneapolis just promised to do it. It's not unprecedented. We can do it. And I'm telling you right now, you have absolutely no choice but to do it. The residents of this city will not sleep until we defund the police. It's positively shameful that you would suggest putting $170,000 when you spend, I believe it's $47 million on the institution that oppresses the people that you are wanting to spend a mere $170,000 on. It's absolutely unfathomable. I know I had a few more points here to make. One thing that I want everyone on council to think about is this. There's a difference between being an ally and being an accomplice. An ally is someone who stands with and recognizes the struggle of a marginalized group. That's the bare minimum. That's the absolute bare minimum. An accomplice is someone who actively works to dismantle oppressive systems, sacrifices your luxuries that are afforded to you by privilege, and follows leadership of the marginalized group. An accomplice expects hard work, no recognition, personal and professional repercussions, Andy, and a lifelong fight against injustice in every area of their life.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Sam Inglot.
Thank you, Clerk Swope. My name is Sam Inglot. I've lived in Lansing for about 8 years. I am a homeowner on the east side. I just want to say I stand with Lansing's Black leaders and the Black Lives Matter movement, who are calling for divestment from the police and using those funds to invest in Black communities, mental health, healthcare, and education. It's clear the system we have is not working. As elected officials, I would urge you to act on the ideas of Black leaders who have been calling for changes for years. People are tired of waiting, and now is the time for bold action and for everyone to stand on the side of justice, freedom, and community. There's a particular quote that I'm fond of that speaks to me personally about this moment and movement that's building right now. It's a quote regarding the views of John Brown, from the diary of one of the fighters who fought alongside him to abolish slavery in the 1850s. Quote, "He expressed himself to us that we should never allow ourselves to be tempted by any consideration to acknowledge laws and institutions to exist as of right, if our conscience and reason condemned them." Our conscience should condemn what we've seen with the murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and many others who were killed or brutalized at the hands of police for not just years, but generations. Our reason should condemn a militarized police force when we know there are better solutions that ensure our communities are safe, connected, and cared for without feeding the racist prison industrial complex. Our modern day militarized police force and discriminatory criminal justice system has been and should continue to be roundly condemned by our conscience as well as our reason. It's time to listen to Black leaders, defund the police, and use those funds to build up community-based solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. We now have Kelly Cosentino. Kelly?
Thank you, Clerk Slope. Can you hear me?
Yes,
I'm here. Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you for making this public comment period available. I'm going to keep this short because everyone else has already incredibly eloquently said what I would hope to say tonight. I'm a longtime Lansing resident. I've lived here for 30 years. I own a home on the north side and have for 20 years. I came to this meeting tonight knowing that I generally supported Black Lives Matter and everything they stand for and have for a long time. But I wasn't sure that I was ready to support their calls to defund the police or to call for Mayor Shore's resignation. But I have to tell you that after sitting through tonight's meeting and after reading the comments of Mayor Shore's participation in the call to which he was invited and for which he was woefully unprepared, I'm now ready to say, I have no faith in the mayor. I have no faith in our city's police. I think the action of tear gassing our protesting people was appalling. And I am now ready to say, let's take that $45 million and spend it in a better place. Because after listening to the members of the community tonight, we have such a beautiful community. We have the capability to give you feedback on what the community needs. We have so many thoughtful people in this city. And after listening to the public comments, I have never been more proud to be a Lansing resident. So I'm going to take Councilmember Jackson's advice, and I'm going to say, I'm going to try to keep the pressure on from now on, and beg you to please, I know Mayor Shore said that he was listening, but I'm not sure what he's been hearing. If he thinks that offering $170,000 for some vague notion of equity and anti-discrimination, when what we're dealing with is a nationwide crisis of faith and trust in a system that was designed to discriminate, it's so inadequate. I would at least like him to hear what people are, to say that he has heard and understood what people are asking for. And I have no faith that he has done that. So I'll close here and thank everyone for their participation. And I look forward to furthering this conversation because this is very much only the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Madeline Rose Smith.
Hi, I'm so excited to be speaking and very inspired by everyone that's spoken so far. I hope we continue to show up to these city council meetings because we're all very articulate and need to get our voices heard. So my points are, 1, I believe in the redistribution of wealth as a continual way of living and ethical consciousness, not just an empty gesture. So since we spent so much of our meeting today discussing the referendum to donate a portion of the salary, I would encourage a portion of the city council member salaries to be specific. I would encourage you guys next meeting to show us how you've actually done that. Give us the receipts, basically. Thank you. Point number 2, I am encouraging the council members to, and especially the mayor, to push for an extension on the eviction moratorium because that's one of the most important ways to protect our citizens in the midst of the economic impact of COVID. There's going to be an economic recovery period that we need to be aware of, even though the state can open and people can go back to their jobs, and that's great. Like, there's still going to be people with like a pool of debt that they have to their landlords. Even further, we should be advocating for a rent cancellation or forgiveness for those 3 months that we were in a lockdown. I personally am at risk of facing an eviction that will tarnish my ability to rent for like the next 5 years. Usually, landlords will not take someone who has been evicted in the past 5 years, and I'm terrified. So please, for the sake of your more vulnerable citizens, push for that eviction moratorium and furthermore, a rent forgiveness. Finally, defund the police. I call for the resignation of Andy Shore, and I will not be satisfied with any number that's not in the millions when we're talking about defunding the police. Any number below that's not in the, what is that? Not 7 digits? I'm not good with numbers. Anyways, millions should be defunded from the police or I'm not going to be satisfied and we'll keep protesting. That is my stance. And that's all.
Thank you very much. Next is Isabella J. Isabella?
Hi, I'm here. Give me 1 second. I am shush. Hey guys, I'm currently on the highway in downtown Lansing. We're protesting, and Paul Birdsong would like to say something to you all.
We are calling for the resignation. Actually, let everybody else say, what do we want? Resignation. What do we want? Resignation. Andy Shore came and made a mockery of us by offering $100,000 to fix all of these problems yesterday, and then today he dropped it to $75,000. It was insulting for him to say $100,000 in the first place. And he lied to us to our face when we asked him about the budget. He said he had no ideas, no plans, or nothing concerning the budget. Whole time along, he has a budget for $11 million for the people and $47 million for the police. So we thought that was bogus. We thought that was fraudulent. We thought we were manipulated. We were played. We were lied to. And at this point, we're not asking him to fix anything anymore. We're asking for his resignation. There are hundreds of us out here right now and hundreds of people driving past us and honking at us. We've had people come out of their house to support us when they heard us yelling that we want him to resign. So we think it's the unanimous decision of most of Lansing, Michigan, that Andy Shore should resign. Yeah!
Okay, thank you guys and have a wonderful evening. Except Andy Shore.
Thank you. Next is Ashleigh Finici. Oh, did I?
Hello, my name is Ashley Fennessy and I live on the east side. I am here today to stand with Black Lives Matter Lansing and to echo the calls for police divestment. The police budget is more than $46 million. Suggesting that we reduce it by $100,000 or $200,000 is nothing but insulting to the genuine concerns about over policing. We're not asking you to scrounge around for pocket change for community programs to appease people. We're asking you to actually meaningfully divest from the police department in a way that reduces police contact with the community, not cutting their training budgets or something else like that. The police don't actually prevent crime. They just investigate and punish it. I don't want a third of general funds going to punishing our community and making our neighbors of color feel surveilled and endangered. That's millions of dollars that we could instead spend on EMTs, social workers, and other unarmed public safety workers who could help our neighbors and heal root problems. When we see a neighbor facing homelessness, addiction, intimate partner violence, or other hardships, we shouldn't be calling the cops on them and perpetuating a cycle of incarceration and harm. We should try to be getting them the help that they need, but that can only happen if our city council invests in the programs so we have someone else to call. I understand that this transformation will not happen overnight. You're not really deciding budgets right now, but I urge the council to act quickly to pass a resolution committing to meaningful divestment so that the community can trust you again. And then looking into creative and research-backed alternatives to helping provide our community with care instead of incarceration.
Thank you. Next is Ethan Schmidt.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to me today. I'm not going to add a lot because Ashley said a lot of things really well, and I want you to really take her words and listen to them and a lot of the people who have spoken before today. I will just add that it's going to be a very serious temptation to try to change minor things like require diversity training, or you're going to want to require de-escalation training or reporting or all these other things. And while that might seem like a victory or a compromise, I want to make sure that you all know that it's not. This is a system that is fundamentally broken. And we have seen that it is not just Minneapolis. I think sometimes people are sitting here going, oh, well, we're not Minneapolis. That didn't happen to us. We have this great police chief. We have all these ideas. But whenever we try to give training or requirements, we have seen over and over again that police departments will just blatantly lie with zero shame in doing so. And if we're supposed to be holding them accountable, but we keep taking their word for it, what we will see is a continuation of the lie, and they will all lie to protect each other, and we will see that over and over and over again. So I encourage you not to go along the route of, oh, let's require this reporting, let's hope that they can be fixed, because the reality is that's just not going to happen. That isn't going to happen because of the system has its roots in white supremacy. It has its roots in attempting to target people. And we just can't trust them anymore. We all saw that Buffalo police video. We saw what happened here in Lansing. What the police department said, it wasn't a mischaracterization. It was just a lie. And anybody who was there knows it, and there's no shame about it at all. So I encourage us to take a lesson from the past and to stop looking for incremental reform when we have a system that's broken. And I encourage City Council to have the courage to be able to move forward with the new system, knowing full well this one is not working for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is Loretta, and if you could state your full name for the record, although I'm guessing it may be Loretta Sanaway, but go ahead, Loretta.
Loretta, if you're trying to speak, you're muted.
Hey guys. Okay, let me try again. I will never support using any amount of taxpayer dollars to fund anything directed to be used only on behalf of any specific race. We do not fund programs specifically for any other race, and we should not do this. We fund for segments of the population, such as the homeless and senior disabled or veterans or low income. But those taxpayer dollars don't go to support only white homeless or only black homeless or only veteran or Latino homeless, etc. This is an egregious proposal which offers a terrible solution to real problems. There are more direct and appropriate ways to fund the desired outcomes than by handcuffing the already underfunded and under-equipped and understaffed and overworked police. If you think if you think there are problems now, imagine what they will be like when they are multiplied by the additional stresses these cuts would create. This is an untenable proposal, and it's my understanding that it would be illegal to divert LPD millage dollars to any other uses than the police. They were voted on by the public to fund the police. They cannot be used to fund anything else. And I would just say that this group you're hearing from tonight is not the largest group of people in the city of Lansing. They are just momentarily the loudest. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we move on, Mr. Clerk, I will remind folks that we're asking you to still maintain the order of the meeting. So if you're not speaking, respect the speaker. Please mute your microphone. I understand mistakes happen, but intentional disruption of the meeting will require removal from the meeting. Thank you. Mr. Clerk, please continue.
Okay, we have Erica Spitzfaden.
Hello, this is Erica Spitzfaden. I've lived in and around the city of Lansing since 1978. I currently live in Charlotte. I work in Lansing, and I will live at 124 West South Street in Lansing beginning in August. I was extremely disappointed in the show of force used by the Lansing Police Department. I understand the Lansing Police Department issued a press release. It does not match firsthand reports from many people. I actually believe the whole press release was a lie, but I wasn't there. Regardless, it is not appropriate for the police department to use tear gas on protesters. We could argue about whether they were rioting, protesting, or peacefully demonstrating, but none of that justifies using a chemical agent, which is not allowed in warfare, on human beings. On people you have taken the entire city, we have taken an oath to protect and serve. I am beyond ashamed of my own city. And while I don't live in Lansing, I do consider it my hometown. But I know that we can do better. Mayor Shore, you should have not felt caught off guard in the Black Lives Matter call. You shouldn't have been. It shows that you're not paying attention. You are not listening. What is being asked for is the same thing that has been asked for by Black Lives for a very long time now. The same thing that was being asked for under former Mayor Bonero, and former Police Chief Yankowski. They also said no. The money, they asked for more money for police. So this is the former mayor and former police chief. They asked for more money for the police. And now we have this highly militarized police force with chemical agents being used on people. People that are assembling to take their grievances to the government, something that is protected under the First Amendment. Police are not trained in peacekeeping. They're trained in violence. They're trained to use force, and they're given weapons of warfare, guns, tear gas, shields, handcuffs, zip ties, and they're told to keep the peace. Do you not see how these two things do not go together? The training is so limited. They're given months of training and a badge and a gun. At what point do you realize this just isn't working? How many of our citizens have to be injured or killed before you see this a problem? The $100,000 you're coming up with to defund is pure optics. That's one detective. And magically, tonight you found a grant for the same amount. It comes out in the wash. It's literally nothing. You're giving nothing to the people. There are better ways. Other countries have found ways. Other cities are already stepping up. We're behind the game. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Audrey Matthews.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay, great.
Yes.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me have this time to talk. Every day I drive past the former Genesee School Street House, which if you're not familiar, it's a horrible, dilapidated school building, and it's not the only one like it of its kind in Lansing. So when I think of defunding police, I think about uplifting an entire generation of Black, brown, white children who are living in poverty. Earlier this summer, I volunteered working at junior achievement at Sexton High School and Eastern High School, where I asked kids what they want to do with their lives. You'll be astounded. I ask everybody to spend afternoon in one of our Lansing schools ever at Sexton Eastern High School. You will leave changed. These kids, some of them are very excited and they all want to be artists. They want to be agents of change, but there are also kids that are not in class. I spoke to half empty classrooms. I see kids randomly walking in the hallways. And I also see kids who are too tired to even lift their heads up. I imagine what is going on in their lives. So when I think of defunding the police, I think about kids walking into class. Instead of seeing these stern faces in uniform, they're seeing smiling faces that are eager to help them and help them through their journey. I also want to remind listeners of former Lansing officer Matthew Preby, who sexually assaulted 3 women, young girls, in Eastern High School. I've gotten pretty close with one of those girls, and she informed me as well that they were all first-generation Mexican-American women. I also want to point out that Black Lives Matter is all-encompassing of people who are suffering because of police control and abuse of police power. That is point blank. We are an encompassing movement. I that cop, while he did go to jail, he has been released in less than a year, and he has done irreversible damage to that girl, her family, and the other woman's family, I imagine, as well. I worked with a lot of sexual assault survivors from Eastern High School personally, and they can all tell you that having police in their school does not make them feel safe. They not feel safe reporting to police because they are afraid of what they will do to their families or to themselves, and what information they may have to disclose, because it's not the way to help youth. Having police in schools is really my main message, and I think a lot of people in this chat know that. So I think we just need to be more creative, and I'm personally not confident that our mayor, Andy Shore, is the one for the job. I think there are voices in this community, in this chat right now, who have those answers. And I think defunding the police can answer that big question mark of what do we do with these abandoned buildings, these abandoned schools that nobody cares about, that these kids are still using and playing in, but they have no idea what kind of dark omens that they hold. I think defunding police is the answer. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Next is James Raddick.
Hi there. Hope everyone's doing well tonight. My name is James Raddick. As has been stated, I have lived in Lansing since 2013 and currently reside in the Old Forest neighborhood. Brian Jackson is my representative. Councilmember Jackson, hope you're well. I would like to state first and foremost that the rallying cry of this moment and of this movement is Black Lives Matter. And we call for the actions such as defunding the police and asking for Mayor Shore's resignation, because we are listening to our Black leaders and we believe that their voices matter. But it is imperative for us. I am a white person, and I encourage other white people to remember that the primary objective and rallying cry right now is that Black Lives Matter. Second, regarding Mayor Shore, I believe he has proven himself in recent days to be unequipped and unprepared to face this moment. And it is my opinion, not just my opinion, but the opinion of many Lansing residents, that he must resign. I would like to note for my fellow Lansing residents that if a recall measure is to be submitted, that paperwork, must be filed by July 31st of this year to make its way onto the November 3rd ballot. Moving on, I think that our city council may try to make excuses when we ask them to defund the police. Regarding Loretta's point, I don't believe it is illegal for the city council to reallocate funds. In fact, I believe Article 7, Chapter 1, Section 8 of the Lansing City Charter allows our city council to consider appropriations to a previously adopted budget. One of those stipulations is under a crisis facing the community. And council members, I would urge you to consider, when you were looking through your city charter, that the Ingham County Health Department has vowed to declare racism a public health emergency. Let us not allow ourselves to repeat the mistakes of 2017, when we said we would do something to declare, or 2017 to declare Lansing a sanctuary city, and then ultimately waffled. Thank you to Councilmember Dunbar for your support.
Thank you. Next is Emily Kotz. Emily?
All right, thank you. So this is actually Dinah DeWald. I'm sitting here with all of my housemates who are also paying very close attention to these proceedings. First of all, I just want to say the first thing has to be that Mayor Andy Shore needs to resign. That's the first point. He's proven that he can't deal with the situation. He doesn't have the leadership required to face the challenge that this city is facing. We no longer have faith in his ability to lead. So the rest of the demands are for the city council and for the next mayor, because Andy Shore has to go. So I want to say that there's no evidence that police surveillance or more police results in fewer crimes or greater public safety. More police, more funding to police means more arrests. And that means more people in jail, more Black and brown people in jail and in prison. Police do not make our communities safer. They do not make Black communities safer. Community services like housing and education and mental health build safer communities, and that is what we need to be putting our money into. So I just want to uplift the demands that so many other people have already said, which is we need to defund the police and invest in community services. And we also need to start by saying, Mayor Andy Shore, you need to step down and you need to resign and let other people take leadership on this issue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And next we have Nikki Finch.
Hi, thanks for listening to us today. I've been living on the east side for over 11 years now, and I'm a homeowner, and I love this community. I love being here. I love my neighbors. I love so much about Lansing. And one thing that I love about us is that we won't sit by when we see our neighbors being oppressed, being targeted, and being hurt. And I see now, what I saw on 2 Sundays ago was that when Lansing, our beloved community, rose up in solidarity with one another and in partnership with people all over the world fighting for racial justice, what we got from the police in the city and the leadership of the city was the first tear gas of the night was on a group of young people, largely young people of color, that were sitting down or kneeling in the street with their hands up. They were tear gassed. There were snipers on the downtown buildings pointing weapons at peaceful protesters in the streets. There was a retroactive curfew that was only selectively enforced. I saw that there were people downtown that didn't even often know that there was a curfew because of all the noise that the police were making with flashbangs and with tear gas canisters, which are really loud. And then there was like a really tinny sound saying something that was hard to hear. And then suddenly people started getting arrested. However, right near my house, I saw a crew of white right-winged people armed to the teeth with rifles standing outside the Trump building who had no impact for breaking the curfew themselves. And so it is targeted. Police have been targeted since their existence. And so what we're asking for is not money to go to a specific racial group. It's money to stop going to a specific racial group. It's to look to the diverse leadership that makes our community rich, listen to the entire community, give those community leaders of color power and voice. And what they're asking for now, which is what I'm here to support, is the Black Lives Matters proposal that Andy Shore needs to step down and we need to defund the police. If you look to police reforms, then you're not listening to the community. What we need is to create safety among ourselves. We need you to fund our future and not our repression. And that goes for all of us. And you'll see that those of us here who are representing these ideas are extremely diverse. We're not asking for special treatment. We're asking for justice. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and our final speaker will be Viviana Castellan Alamillo. Viviana?
Yes, good evening, everybody. My name is Viviana Castellan Alamillo. I am from the Lansing area. I live in the south side of Lansing. I own a home near Kroger on the south side. And I just wanted to voice my opinion here because I am a mother of a 7-month-old child of color. He is Hispanic, but I stand with the Black Lives Matter community because I know that one day my kid is going to grow up here and he needs to be respected just like every kid of color in the community here. And it is a huge fear that I have instilled in me that my kid will not grow up in a safe community, policed in schools. That should not be a thing. Being discriminated by standing with his friends at a gasoline station or at a grocery store or outside his school. And that's something that's kind of taking a toll on me right now. And I just like to voice that it needs to change and that the police department as well as to be funded and reallocated those funds towards locations where it can be funded for people that have addictions to drugs or problems with amongst families, etc. And yes, I stand with the Black community in stating that the police department should be defunded. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes the speaker list that made it in under the deadline. Those of you who wish to continue to provide public comment at future council meetings, we meet 7 o'clock next Monday. Monday the 22nd. Thank you all for the comments this evening. It is 10:54, and with no other business for the Lansing City Council, we will be adjourned. Thank you.